We're on. We're on. We're on. Hey, folks. Hello, hello, hello. Happy Tuesday. Can I get some sound disciples to let me know if my sound is good enough, or if I need to turn my mic up a little bit? Somebody in the chat, just let me know if my sound is good, and then we'll go ahead and get some hellos in and jump into everything, because it's been quite a week, right? All right, chat. What's going on here? Let's see. Why's my chat taking forever to respond? Okay. Why is my chat not moving? Am I tripping? All right, either way, we just gonna keep going. Okay. What's going on with this thing? All right, chat. I don't see you moving. I just want to make sure I'm live. Whatever. Okay, it's kicking in. There we go. Are we live? Are we live? We're live. Okay. Anyway, hello, folks. Let me see. What's up to what up, Eric Williams? D. Bradford said, finally, I can catch a live without the stress of homework. This last semester of grad school is kicking my butt. We were talking, what are we talking about tonight? A lot of stuff. Good evening, Calvin and everyone. Kudos to you being in grad school. I've been kind of almost thinking of going, and then I remember it's probably not a good time to go right now. The country needs to kind of realign itself, and it's just not a good time to, I don't know. But I'm not telling you guys to not go for school, but like I don't know. Even with them having the cap on how much you can even take out for loans for grad school, that's throwing me way off. But no, we'll see. Jana said, hey, I didn't know there was a live tonight. It's probably because I didn't announce it until, well, I announced it earlier today, but because I made 3 posts today, my stuff is probably going to show up funky in the algorithm. So this is actually the second video for today. I uploaded a pre-made video talking about Kirk Franklin and the Family's Melodies from Heaven and the story behind that song and how it correlates to happenings that were taking place in 1996. So for those who want to see that, that is the video that I also uploaded. Most likely you're not going to get that video, this live, and my announcement about the live at the same time, just because how the algorithm goes. So it just kind of depends on what YouTube wants to do. You know what I mean? What up, Raywin? Let's see. What up, Charlene? What up, Travis Dion? Tim. I'm actually about to get into that conversation. I'm gonna bring up this Rapture thing in a minute because that was interesting. Avocado Queen, what up? Lakia says my sister's going back for a doctorate. Like, I commend anybody who goes back. It's a lot of work to go to grad school and work. And I am fully in support of higher education. So go and get it. My friend Whitney just got her master's recently. And it's somebody who's like running an entire like corporation and then still finding time for school. It's a lot of work. So I commend anybody who can do it. So we'll see. I'll go to grad school if the money makes sense. I will happily do it. Okay, where do we start? Like, there's a lot going on here. Let me start light. All right. So I will say, side note, just with television, I happened to watch and binge on this show I saw called Good American Family. Now, I don't know what to tell you now because it's on Hulu. I know everybody's boycotting all the stuff now, but I watched it before all the stuff happened. Very interesting watch. It's this like series about, and I guess it's based on a true story. It's this family that goes and they adopt this girl, and it's kind of like the movie The Orphan, but the girl, according to the family, wasn't really a little girl. She was actually grown. And then a wild watch, right? And the thing is, so I keep seeing this little piece of hair that's flying in the back that's driving me crazy. But anyway, so what got me is like the first 4 episodes are told through the story and the lens of the family that adopts the girl. And then maybe the last 4 episodes are more so through the lens of the little girl. So like when you watch the first 4 episodes, you're like, oh, they should have been sent her back, because the girl was doing all kind of stuff. She was trying to kill the family members and just everything under the sun. She was walking around with knives and blades and pushed one of the siblings into the street to almost get hit by a car. And so you were like, yep, she got to go, right? And then by the time you get to the last 4 episodes, it's like, I'm just spoiling it all. My bad. I'm telling the whole thing. But anyway, long story short, it's painted in this way where you almost, depending on how your discernment moves, you almost feel bad for the little girl. And then it kind of starts to question whether this is really a little girl, an adult or not. Because the family, damn, I'm spoiling it. Just go watch it. It was an interesting watch. That's all I'll say. I was like, there's a lot going on. And then I went down the rabbit hole and started finding all the news stories and everything else about it. So now I'm just all confused with what I watched, because I think I know who to believe, but interesting watch. So that was one of the things I binged on. Between that and just running from these stupid, I don't know if it's in your region, but all of those lantern flies that are everywhere. My God. I don't know. They're these like invasive kind of species that have come from some part of Southeast Asia, and they are over here and they are in droves. It's like these things are everywhere. And the weird thing is, because they're kind of foreign to the area, like the birds and the squirrels and stuff don't know what to do. So it's not like the birds are eating these lantern flies. So, I mean, the lantern flies ain't scared of nothing, right? You know, like when mosquitoes and dragonflies and stuff are doing their business, when they see the birds, they clear out. Lantern flies like, nope, what's up? What's up? They saying what's up to the Cardinals and the Blue Jays, because the Cardinals and the Blue Jays don't know what to do. The squirrels ain't eating them. I'm like, that they just land on you, and they're not afraid of humans. They're everywhere. I'm sick of it. But yeah, so there's that. Okay, anyway. And then also for the book club, I pushed this back to October 6th just because I realized we would have been starting next Monday. I don't think that's enough time for everybody to get the book and also read the first 3 chapters. But the book that you all voted on was The Color of Money. So we're going to pick that up on October 6th. That's a Monday. That'll be at 9 p.m. Eastern time. We're covering chapters 1 through 3. For anybody who would like to be in the book club, all you got to do is literally click the link that I'll post the day of. Or you can just go to my website, calvinmichaels.com, go to the tab that says book club and reading list, and there's always going to be a link that takes you straight to the book club. You don't have to sign up for anything. You don't got to pay nothing. You just click and join. If you haven't read the book, that's fine. You're free to fellowship and just, hang out and follow along when you can. The book club is very informal. It's not, well, hell, these lives are very informal as well. I always tell people, don't feel like intimidated coming on the book club. Like when you get on it, we're just on there chopping it up, laughing, chilling. We're talking about the book, but at the same time, it's just kind of like just being in camaraderie with people who have your same interests. So if you choose to participate, please don't feel intimidated or feel like you can't speak up or feel like you can't be on the camera or anything like that. And again, the book club is not on the channel. It's a separate thing unrelated to this, because not everybody wants to be on the internet, right? Not everybody wants to be broadcast in front of however many thousand subscribers we have here. Okay, so that is that. All right. I'm going to actually start. I'm gonna change my order up a little bit really quick. Okay. So, look, actually, since you brought it up, Timon, we're gonna talk about this Rapture thing, right? So, first of all, this story didn't even hit my side of the internet. Like, I didn't find out about any of this until late last night, because I don't even know what side of the internet that was on, but it didn't get to me, right? I've become very meticulous and intentional about the things that I consume online, or even the things that I will give my space to. So, a lot of the crazy, like, MAGA, that whole, I don't see a lot of that stuff unless somebody sends me the story, right? I have purposely made my whole internet experience very, 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 very black. Okay. But apparently there was, like, I guess a South African preacher or prophet who stated that the rapture was coming back today, Tuesday, right? And so there's all these people who really were like, we got to get our stuff together. I mean, people were selling their property. They were trying to make sure that their dogs would be okay and that somebody would take care of the dogs when they were gone. They were putting out their last statements on social media, and it was just very interesting. But the thing that was getting me was the demographic of people who were really latching onto this. Like, a lot of the folks who were really, like, locked in with this were people that, for me, I was just like, y'all have the audacity. I didn't want to be rude, but I was like, y'all think y'all would be the ones going of all people? I'm like, for all the hell y'all been raising, you think y'all are the first choice, the first selection, huh? Like, my God. And then I was like, actually, it might be a good thing if y'all go ahead and go. It might do some of us a favor. Like, I've been waiting for Mars to open up so some people could go and go start a new civilization and leave us alone. But I was like, because then, my God. And it just made me think, because it's crazy how, like, your convictions can sometimes really, really get you. Like, I think back to being a child, because growing up as a church kid, especially growing up Kojic, we always heard about the rapture. Like, we were brought up to just always almost be in, like, a space of fear where, like, everything you did, you were going to burn for it, right? And so I just remember being a kid, and I think I told this on one of my podcast episodes. It was supposed to be like a youth explosion night. I was 8 years old. Remember this, 8 years old. That's what, second grade? 8 years old. when you think youth explosion night or something at church, it's supposed to be, I don't know, because this would have been like 95, 96. You're thinking, some fun music. The kids get to wear jeans. Maybe they got some snacks in the basement or in the vestibule after the service, and that's it, kind of. They made us watch this movie called Distant Thunder, right? It's on YouTube, by the way. So Distant Thunder is this movie. It has to be from the 70s. Has to be. And in this movie, it's all about the whole rapture prophecy. And so in the movie, there's the lead actress in the movie. They keep warning her about the rapture. Get your life right with God so that you can, ascend into heaven when he comes back. But she didn't do it fast enough. So then everybody disappeared and she was left. And so at this point in the movie, they had the Mark of the Beast thing, right? And it was like this kind of like tattoo you have to get in order to utilize currency. Like they would stop using the American dollar and stuff worldwide. You have to get this mark. And then if you didn't get the mark, you couldn't buy anything, you couldn't use any services, so on and so forth. But this movie took a twist because then it was like the government was trying to kill her because they were trying to catch everybody that didn't get the mark. And the reason why the people didn't want to get the mark was because if you could make it for however many years without the mark, when God came back a second time, then you could go to heaven. But if you got the mark, you had to go to hell. And mind you, I'm 8 watching this, right? This was for the kids, for us to watch, right? And so this movie, this girl is running for her life, literally, the whole movie. Everywhere you go, and it's government folks with AR-15s and M16s and all this other stuff. And then at the end of the movie, they catch her and they cut her head off. And so by the time that movie ended, when I tell you, I was in the back of my parents' car, snot crying, boo-hooing, because I'm thinking of all the stuff I did at the playground. I am thinking of all the times I said bad words under my breath. I'm thinking of the time that we were at the PX, and I remember there was these washable Crayola markers that I wanted. And my mom said I couldn't get them, so I purposely put them in my little brother's, the bottom of his stroller, because this is when Marcus would have been like barely 1 year old. And I put the Crayola markers in the stroller, and then we went right out of the PX, and I had my markers. I'm thinking of all of that, like, oh, now I'm going to burn for eternity. And when I tell you that mess had me shook, and it had me shook for years, too. Like, I remember, like, sometimes my parents would, like, especially when we were in Italy, sometimes my parents would come home, and they would go and hang out next door. There was a lady, Miss Jenny, that also watched my little brother because she babysat. So I'd be coming home, and I see my parents' Jeep in the driveway, and I'm thinking they're home. And then I go in the home, like, I'm home, and there's nobody there. There's no sounds. But you see, like, your mom's purse sitting on the coffee table and stuff. You see your dad's, like, other set of keys. And so I used to be like, oh, my God, I didn't get in. And I'd just be, like, panicking at the house, right? And then I get desperate, and I go run to Miss Jenny's house because I'm like, maybe they're at Miss Jenny's house, or I'd be like, let me see if Miss Jenny's home, because Miss Jenny was like super saved. Like I knew if anybody was getting into heaven, it was Miss Jenny. So I knew if I went to Miss Jenny's house and she wasn't home, but her car was there, then I just didn't get in. And then I would get to the house, and they would all be at Miss Jenny's house, like playing cards and stuff. I'm like, oh, wait a minute. And I'd be like, I thought the rapture was coming. And then they would just bust out laughing. Like they used to think that stuff was so funny. The times. And I told y'all that story of why I never got to see TLC as a group live when the three of them were all still together, right before Left Eye passed. And it was because my mother claimed the rapture was coming. And I've made my peace with it. But when I tell you, I still remember the date. It was January 10th, 2000, Key Arena, 7:30. And I remember seeing the advertisement that September. It aired on TRL. And I remember because I remember TLC, it went on TRL. This is when, the group was fighting, and it was only T-Boz and Chili that appeared on TRL. They had talked about, we're going on our first tour, blah, 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 blah. And then MTV would show the advertisers like, TLC, come to your town, come to your town. Now, this is September 99. They're not getting to Seattle till January 10th, 2000. This is after Y2K. We already didn't know what the world was going to be like either at the time. So I'm excited because I'm like, I can't wait to go. And I just knew my parents would say yes, because my dad used to go to every concert. Like the reason I ended up liking Janet Jackson was because he liked Janet Jackson, right? And so I begged to go to this show. And then, my mom was like, no. First, she was like, you're too young to go to a concert. And I'm like, well, I don't want to go by myself. Y'all can come too. My mom's like, I don't want to hear them, because my mom didn't listen to a lot of secular music. All she listened to that wasn't gospel was like Aretha and Patty, sometimes Anita and some Luther. And if she wanted to get spicy, maybe who else? I mean, those are really it. Like my mom didn't listen to a lot of stuff that wasn't gospel. She might play some old, or sometimes, she might play some old school Diana every now and then. My dad was the one who was still playing everything. And so, yeah, my mom was not interested in going. So time passes. I remember Christmas was coming. I just knew I had them tickets because there was an envelope under the Christmas tree. Envelope was just a letter from one of my aunts and a card, right? And so I'm thinking, okay, well, where's the ticket? So fast forward to January 10th. I'm getting dressed. I know I'm going to this show. Everybody at school's talking about it. And mind you, this is back when a lot of like R&B acts weren't coming to Seattle because Seattle was not a big R&B market at the time. But everybody in my school, this was what? Camas Prairie Elementary. Everybody in my class was going to this concert. And I just knew I was going. So I'm getting dressed, right? I got the radio on. My mom is like, I already told you you're not going. What are you getting dressed for? And mind you, we lived in Spanaway. Seattle was like 50 minutes away in the car. And I had parents that also did not like driving. You know how some people have parents that are like, we'll give you a ride, but you got to find a way back, or you got to find a way there and we'll come pick you up. No, it was, you got to find a way there and a way back. But at the time I was like 11 or 12. So there was no find a way, nothing, because you're going to be under us. And so, man, I remember I was getting dressed. My mom's like, you're not going. I already told you you're not going. And I'm confused because I'm like, y'all are acting like I asked to go to the Up and Smoke tour. Like, it's TLC. They don't really do a whole lot. And so I know her. My mom was like, I remember I was getting mad. Like, I get teary-eyed. I was so mad because I'd never been to a concert before. They were like the biggest thing out at the time. They were like favorites of mine since I was maybe 4 years old. And so I'm getting mad. I remember like crying about it. And my mom's, you crying? You know, she was like, well, what you gonna do if the Rapture come back? And then they're on the stage up there shaking. Then where you gonna be? What? Like, this wasn't even that kind of group. Like, oh man, she was so serious. Let me tell you how crazy it was. It was so bad that they were playing, you know, the radio station is at Key Arena. Well, now I think it's Climate Pledge Arena. And so at that point, this was the second leg of the tour. The second leg had Christina Aguilera and Black on the ticket, and there was somebody else, right? And so I'm listening to Eric Powers. I don't even know if he's still in that station no more. And he's like talking to the fans that are at the concert, like, hey, we're about to upgrade your tickets to the fan mail section. And I'm just in my room going through it. Like, I can't believe I'm not going to this show. Fast forward some months, you know, TLC ends up releasing the show on pay-per-view. My mom was still so petty, we couldn't even watch it on pay-per-view. And my friend Bobby next door had pay-per-view. And so they were going to watch it. And so I was just going to go to Bobby's house next door to watch it. My mom was like, no, you're not going over there to watch the stuff because you're not about to have people thinking we don't got cable at our house. I'm like, well, we don't have pay-per-view because you don't want to pay for it. So I couldn't even go to Bobby's house to watch the concert. And this is back when if you didn't have the channel, it had the squiggly lines. This is before everything was digital. This is when we were still analog. And so we had the channel. We just weren't paying for it. So, I sat and watched this whole show on like the squiggly lines. I could only see like a small piece of the TV, like the left side of the TV. I could kind of see it, but I could hear it pretty clear. So I sat there all night and watched this show and squinting, trying to get it. Oh, man. Anyway, when Left Eye died, I had this meltdown, and I chewed my mom out like, I will never see my group because you wouldn't let me go to that concert, and now one of them is dead, and I will never see them. And so her way of apologizing, because she felt bad at that point, she realized she was doing a whole lot back then, because they could have just took me to the concert. It wasn't that deep. Everybody in my class went. Anyway, so her apology was she bought me the Destiny's Child Survivor tour DVD. And at the time, no disrespect to Destiny's Child, I didn't like them at the time. I didn't really get into Destiny's Child until Destiny Fulfilled. I did like the writings on the wall, but I wasn't a super like fan. I just was a casual listener. I thought they had really nice albums, but it wasn't like, oh, I must see them, right? And so my mom gets me the Destiny's Child. I'm like, Mom, this isn't even the same group. And she, again, I told you, she don't really like listen to everything and everybody. And so she was like, Bounce isn't in TLC? Because she called Beyonce Bounce back in the day. Bounce ain't in TLC? I'm like, no, Mom, it's not even the same group, man. And so there's that anyway. And mind you, this would continue because even in college, she ain't like this no more. But back in the day, them convictions were deep for her. The first time I finally got to see Janet, right? I saw Janet at the Rock With You tour. I had to wait till I got to college because I couldn't go to the All For You. I knew not to actually go to the All For You tour, and I'm glad we didn't go because had my parents took me to that show and they would have got to the part where Janet was doing Would You Mind, where she straps the guy to the chair and she's doing all the, oh Lord, I would never heard the end of it. Anyway, so yeah, Rock With You tour. I was in college at that point. I got my ticket. Went and saw it in DC. Had an amazing time. Then this is the tour where she was like doing cancellations and pushbacks and rescheduling because of the vertigo and some other weird stuff. And so she was supposed to do something at Howard University with like Thurgood Marshall scholars. And when she rescheduled her New York show, it conflicted with whatever she was supposed to be doing with Thurgood Marshall scholars. And so as like an apology, she gave all of the Thurgood Marshall students like tickets to the New York show. I was not a Thurgood Marshall scholar. One of my classmates was and was like, I don't want to see no Janet Jackson. You want to go? I'm like, hell yeah, get that ticket. And so I took the ticket, got on a bus to New York. And I remember I was almost to New York. I'm in Jersey at this point. My mama called. I had a dream. Here we go. Because my mom used to do that when I was little. She used to always have a dream. Like, sorry guys, I can't come outside. My mom had a dream again. But she's like, I had a dream. Something in my spirits telling me to not let you get on that bus. Like, Mom, I'm already halfway to Jersey. I'm not missing Janet. I'll tell you how the concert was. So we look back and laugh on these moments now. That was just some quick story time. We've come a long way. A mess. But anyway, this takes me to my more serious point. What's been really interesting with the way that a lot of things have been going in the last week and a half, especially after the events surrounding you-know-who that is no longer with us. By the way, I normally don't really engage and go back and forth with people in the comment section of my video. I normally just say my 2 cents and, I'll respond to the positive comments. I did like clap back at a few people on that last video, but it was kind of annoying because what was interesting is just seeing how many people will do the mental gymnastics to try and paint you-know-who as something that he was not in order to kind of water down and rebrand what it was that he was behind. So like that's kind of just been a very annoying thing. I did not pay attention to what was happening with the services and stuff over the weekend like that. But I'll say this. I think that the challenge, and this goes back to even this Rapture conversation, we have a lot of people who are hiding literally behind religion to feel justified in the oppressive policy and the oppressive atrocities that they stand behind, right? And unfortunately, there are a lot of people who are not a part of that specific collective who are blindly aligning with these people, all because of the rhetoric that is being used when it comes to religion, like scriptures and verses and this and that. And so I think a lot of people aren't realizing that you're latching onto optics and not reality. And so now we have a lot of people, especially Black folks, we got a lot of Black folks who were having a really hard time distinguishing between what falls in the conversation of spirituality and religion and what is a conversation of white nationalism and what is a conversation of racism and violence and everything else, and where do you stand on it? And it has been driving me crazy watching so many people try to almost turn a blind eye to what's literally in our face because folks want to like latch onto, a random scripture. I was like, what is going on? I didn't think we were this far behind, right? And I'm saying this as somebody who grew up in the church. Like I can quote every scripture like the next person, but I also I feel like for those who are religious, God also gives us discernment and common sense, right? And so the thing that I found interesting, even with the few clips I saw online from that service, right, which was interesting, I said, this is a very interesting kind of in remembrance of event. I mean, they had like pyrotechnics like it was WWE and then they had Stephen Miller go up there and do his Nazi speech, and I'm like, okay, all right. And then Orange Man went up there and I don't even know what he was up there talking about. I was like, are you guys, if you're honoring this guy, maybe he should be the topic of the conversation, but whatever. But I think what I found interesting in that is, because again, this event was heavily attended. It's like a football stadium packed out. Ain't no empty seats, packed to the point where you got people outside, like what you call the overflow. And so it was noticeable that so many found comfort, and knowing that there were others who felt the same way as what it is that man had pretty much preached about and projected. But a lot of them latched onto the idea of Christianity and spirituality to justify why they, came out in droves. Because a lot of those people didn't even know who he was until after everything happened, right? And so for me, what got me is like, you find out about who this guy is, you read about the things he stands behind, the things that he says. And even though we don't support the idea of people being killed, right? We don't support the idea of violence and, all that kind of stuff. That's the speech we got to say. It's interesting that people could bypass all of the atrocities and offenses listed and still run out there 10 toes down and all of a sudden try to make this man almost a deity. I was like, I am confused. I am confusion here, right? And so, but seeing that, it was just noticeable to see that all these people felt like they now had a space where they could be open about how they move, because I don't see any of what happened at that service as a spiritual anything. I saw that again as pretty much like a great giant white nationalist rally. One of they folks unfortunately ain't here no more, and they came together, right? And so I'll just say this, and I normally don't even like talking religion on this channel because I want to respect where people stand on things, but I'm just going to say for those in the collective here, please understand, and this is not to blanket statement everybody, but specifically for the kind of crowd that would have been at that event, for the kind of crowd that has gone out of their way to try to fire people because people have said the reality about this individual and then hid behind the idea of, no, people are celebrating that he died. That's why they got to be fired. Okay, here's the thing. The heaven that demographic envisions does not include you and never has. They don't even want you in their neighborhood. What makes you think they want to spend eternity with you, right? And so I just was like, it's crazy because we're now at a space where people can openly say Black women aren't able to process information and have no common sense and aren't smart enough to do anything. And that's why DEI is there, so they can take all the qualified white men's positions. Martin Luther King wasn't a good person. The Civil Rights Bill was a terrible thing. The Great Replacement Theory alone should be your signal to say, hey, these people aren't here for me. They're for themselves, because that whole Great Replacement Theory is about the idea of everybody who's not this replacing everybody. And we're taking their spots and stuff, and using all of the terms and the trigger words that piss off everybody, get people enraged, get people to want to go and be violent, right? How do you still stand and run behind that and give that a pass just because they quoted a Bible verse? Even the devil knew the Bible. The devil could sing heaven. Like, the devil had a beautiful musical voice and do all the wonderful things, and just, all of the things that were just glorious that sounded beautiful, but it was still the devil, right? And so it's just like, I don't know. Because it made me think of DarkChild, right? DarkChild's been getting lashed. That's the producer. Which DarkChild, he kind of stands on some other stuff. Actually, I'll share exactly what I'm talking about, because I want to just highlight where we're at, because interesting. I don't have a word for tonight. I know last week was Discernment. Hold on, I gotta pull this thing. I didn't even have it open yet. But something is throwing me off here with the way that people are moving now. Like, it's pissing me off a little bit, to be honest, right? And so, all right, let's do this again. All right. All right, so, okay. This is the quote I want to highlight. So DarkChild had his Instagram. Now, on the original post, he has the picture of who with his family and the wife and everything. And then this is what's posted next to it, right? Quotes a verse for a scripture from Psalms, right? Sure, Black people always putting S on there. All right. Surely the righteous will never be shaken. They will be remembered forever. They will have no fear of bad news. Their hearts are steadfast, trusting in the Lord. Their hearts are secure. They will have no fear. In the end, they will look in triumph of their foes. Okay, now I'm just going to say this. Again, I am not going to fight anybody for their religious beliefs or where they stand on things. But this is what I found interesting, because then I was like, let me dig through the rest of his social media. Because, sometimes there are people that are just across the board on everything. So there are some people who they're going to have their Charlie Kirk post. They're going to have their George Floyd post. They're going to have their Martin Luther King post. Everything, right? They just tunnel vision, Bible, a death of anybody is terrible. And so they talk about all that. So I'm like, well, maybe he has like other posts on there. I scroll through that page. Ain't nothing on nothing. Everything is music, music, music. So I'm like, so the one time you want to really stand on something or say it with your chest, it's about this guy who wouldn't want to live in the same neighborhood with you. It's about this guy who wouldn't want his children going to the same school as your children. About this guy who would be pissed off if you made more money than him and had a better life than. Like, interesting, right? And again, it just kind of goes back to what I was saying, where it's like, y'all, the conversation that I think should have been taking place around who should have been the conversation on gun violence. That's the conversation we should have been leading. The conversation around maybe the idea of unity. I think it's a far, 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 far stretch from the reality that we're living in, but those are the things we should have preached against or preached for. And instead, it's turned into taking that tragedy and making that man a deity, and then sugarcoating and watering down whatever offenses he has. And now we're going to pull out all the good things we can find, where we've literally rewritten history in a week. Well, not we, they, some of y'all have rewritten history in a week about this man. And for me, it's wild. I mean, we had flags flying at half staff, and I'm like, shouldn't the flags be flying at half staff with regard to gun violence? Because there also was a school shooting, right? Listen, you can let his unfortunate demise serve as a symbolism for everything wrong with gun violence in this country. See, if they would have ran with that, and then, they doing the flags at half staff and moment of silence, let's have a moment of silence for all the victims of gun violence. I can stand behind that, right? I can rally behind that. But again, the fact that this is a man who has pretty much said all the smoke signals and giving you all the code words for white nationalism to do its thing, we want to sit here and pretend that because of what unfortunately has happened to him, now all of a sudden we're going to act like none of that matters. And now even those of us who would have been on the receiving end of the things that he would kind of fight for and against that works against us, now everybody's trying to, sensationalize and water down and dilute the offenses. That I can't get. Even with Congress, right? Because mind you, at the same time, right, we've seen there were some black churches this week that were getting threats because of some preachers who actually were 10 toes down, like, nah, what we can do is we can talk about that there's violence and it is a sin to kill and so on and so forth, but we can also talk about, how we got here. And we saw that there were churches that had to have extra security this week. So while everybody's still talking about all this love and all this Jesus, some of them were still loading the Glock in his name, right? Anyway, a mess. Oh, and then it's weird because even some of the white evangelical churches, I saw the clip of the service where they had a whole AI video of Charlie Kirk like talking to the congregation. I'm like, almost as if he had like come back from the dead. I'm like, okay, this is getting weird. Like, yeah. And that's why I was looking at Congress like they were stupid too. Like, Congress had the resolution, right? And I don't even know how some people in Congress fell for this. Now we know him to our law and our politics. A lot of times when there are bills or things that are being passed, they'll put multiple things in a bill and name it something, but it has 5 or 6 things under it. And so in this one, it was the conversation of, again, gun violence. But then at the same time, the main segment was honoring who. And so, of course, we already knew most of the GOP people would sign off on it. Yeah, declaration, blah, blah, blah. And then I think, 92 Democrats signed on it? And I'm like, okay. And then a lot of their justification was, oh, well, we were standing up against gun violence. And I'm like, you could have easily just drawn a different resolution centered on gun violence that doesn't honor who, right? And so this is why I think Democrats get a lot of the smoke that they get, because it's like, y'all don't even play the game right. And so because, again, y'all also continue to give interest to this nonsense, it makes a lot of people who already aren't really, all that excited to ever go and vote. This is the justification as to why a lot of them stay home, right? This is the justification as to why sometimes you guys have a hard time rallying people, because people don't know where you all stand on anything. But I will tell you this. I'll tell you which demographic of Democrats did not vote yes on that declaration. All the black women in Congress, every last one of them voted no. That should tell you something, right? Tell y'all keep picking and choosing who y'all don't want to listen to. And I actually pulled up, let me see if I have Joyce Beatty. That's what I'm gonna shout out, because Joyce Beatty was like, I ain't with this, and I'm gonna tell you why. So let me share what she had to say, right? All right, so Joyce Beatty, on September 19th, the U.S. House of Representatives voted to pass a House Resolution 719 honoring the life and legacy of Charlie James Kirk. That right there should have told you everything you needed to know. Why are you voting yes on this? And they just tucked in some gun violence behind it. And you talk about, we didn't want them to say we voted no on gun violence. No, you just introduced a different resolution. Anyway, the resolution was introduced by House Speaker Mike Johnson 3 days earlier. The resolution passed along partisan lines with 215 Republicans voting yes. 95 Democrats, even worse than the 92 I had. No, I must have been mixing that up with the 92%. My bad. In a letter dated September 19th, Beatty said Kirk's worldview stands against everything I believe in, citing his insulting comments about Jews, Muslims, immigrants, women, and the intellectual capacity of black women. Beatty also noted comments Kirk made about the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which he called a mistake, as well as his comments calling the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. an awful man, right? And then people want to sit here and all of a sudden think that, I don't know, because I caught some smoke too. Anybody who called this man out, we're terrible people because we called out exactly what we saw and what we saw that man for. But again, latching on to the spirituality thing, latching on to optics, latching on to symbolism. Let's pretend that we're good people. Let's pretend that we can all stand in solidarity with this kind of nonsense. Thank you, Joyce, for being about it, right? Because at this point, for me, it's kind of like, did y'all honor the Hortmans when they were killed in their home? The state senators in Minnesota, a few months ago? We ain't heard nothing about them, right? And they were actual politicians. You would think that, now I understand they're not, they're at the state level, so this is not the House of, the House and the Senate as far as the federal level. This is the state level, but still, these are state workers, or these are workers for the people that are actually working to do things within policy. So bad they even killed the people's dog. There's no conversation about honoring them. There was no stadium-sized candlelight vigil and everything, and none of that. There were no pyrotechnics. There wasn't nobody coming down out of the ceiling and flying like Pink singing sober. None of that, right? It's theatrics and it's performative. And so that's why I'm kind of like, y'all keep taking the bait, and now you look stupid. So people are gonna remember you 95, right? They're gonna remember y'all. I just want you to know. Y'all better keep talking about the midterms. Y'all, good luck ironing this out. It is not my job to sit here and plead the case for y'all, because some of y'all need to go anyway. I think there needs to be a lot of primaries coming up. A lot of people have gotten too comfortable in their positions of power, and they have made entire brands on being for the people and being this, but then they cave every single time when they're actually needed to do the work. So yes, primary some of these people. That's why I say get active. Remember, there are over 500,000 elected positions in this country. Lock in with what is important to you. Lock in with what's happening in your area, what's local. Go to the grassroots organizations and learn about what movements are taking place. Pay attention to the resolutions that are on the floor, right? Some of these people are in it for their own paycheck. Some of these people got in it with the right intentions, but they've been in there too long. They started getting some of that lobbying money. The whole money is looking good. And at the end of the day, a lot of these people don't lose sleep about pissing off the general public because they don't live amongst the general public anyway, right? So that's the reality. Because for me, it's kind of like, I just need to know where you stand. I can't, in this era of 2025, you can't be lukewarm with me. Either you are this or you are that. There's no middle when it comes to my oppression. There's no middle when it comes to anti-blackness. There's no reaching across the aisle with that kind of BS. And too many people keep, just latching onto it, which brings me to Van Jones and his bull crap, right? Now, I've dragged that man many times on this channel, right? Van Jones is not my type. And when I say not my type, he, to me, is somebody who he's not for us and never has been. His core audience is white folks. That's who he builds his brand on, and he likes to be the respectable Negro, to be the voice of Black people and go and somehow translate our conversations, which we didn't ask him to do. You are not the voice of Black anything. But, he went on the media press thing, and he was saying, because, him and Charlie Kirk had just been dragging each other a few weeks ago. And then, he went on CNN and some other shows. He was talking about how Charlie Kirk had actually reached out to him the day before the incident took place, saying, hey, I would like for you to come on my show. Let's have a civilized debate. So Van Jones couldn't wait to tell everybody that. But then he starts talking about all this stuff where the table like flips over, and he's like, this man was, he was my arch nemesis, and for this man to reach out and say, let's have a conversation, and then he starts talking about, I was like, I have to go to the memorial. I'm like, so weak in the knees, man. Like, and so he starts talking about, he said, let's have a civil discourse. Let's have a civil dialogue. Let's have a civil debate. And I'm kind of, and then the line that has gone viral was like, and he was like, because, we can disagree agreeably. We can disagree agreeably. We disagree. Like, what are you talking about? And see, here's my issue with that. Like, the thing is, actually, I need to take a sip, because damn it. Hold on, let me see if this tea done cooled off. Hell. Thank you, Whitney. I'm not afraid to have my tea ready for me. Here's my thing. Every single time there is a random Black person I won't even say Black folks. Every single time there is somebody that belongs to a marginalized or oppressed community that decides to elect themselves as the spokesperson for that community, they always play this tap dancing game where they do, again, the mental gymnastics of trying to appease the very demographic that started the fire, right? And so, again, when I see somebody like a Van Jones and he's talking about civil discussion, civil discourse, civil debate, the civility and the burden of civility should not be on us, right? This is the reality. They burned your house down, right? So you try to rebuild it. They show up and destroy your tools to rebuild and destroy everything else that you tried to rebuild. You move further away to try to get out of their space and do your own thing and try to rebuild again. They come back and do exactly the same thing, and they do it over and over and over. And you keep moving and moving and moving, and they keep showing up and doing it again. The same cycle repeats and repeats and repeats. And so now you're fighting to show them that you pretty much can behave, by continuing to get slung around or disrespected or oppressed, because you can tolerate it and be civil about it as they continue to screw you over. Like, oh, I have some decorum with my oppression. Like, what is wrong with you? Like, and so, like, that's my issue with, like, Van Jones. You just notice every single time when we have these conversations of reaching across the aisle, it's always, we got to reach across the aisle to somehow make a compromise about with what racist people want. There's no reaching across the aisle with a white nationalist. They don't want you around. There's nothing you guys can agree on. The only thing that they can do is maybe divide you and maybe get you to kind of get your 2 cents on what you maybe think about immigrants, depending on how you see the world. And then maybe that's the thing they agree on. But as soon as the immigrant conversation is handled, you're up next, right? And so when it comes to somebody who only sees themselves as the standard of operation, only sees themselves as the most deserving, only sees themselves as existing in a future society, only seeing themselves in this utopia that they want to create. You're not a part of it. So reaching across the aisle, it only means that at some point you're going to cave. Every single time. You're going to cave. This is how I keep saying that conversation of giving an inch to nonsense and then they run a marathon on you. That's what it is. Every single time y'all keep giving an inch to this nonsense, they get a little bit more. And so it's like one of those like the fruit roll up. You know, they just keep getting a little bit, just get a little bit more. We're getting to the end of the paper. Ain't too much left. And at the end of the paper, it's symbolic of Black America. We about to get eaten up because y'all keep giving them a little bit more, thinking, well, if we're nice to them, you know, we can show that we're not emotional beings, because that's another conversation. I keep seeing people say Black people are too emotional, and that's why blah, 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 blah. If your lineage ties to 400 years of enslavement, followed by sharecropping and convict leasing and Jim Crow laws and the Black codes and housing discrimination and everything under the sun that you can think of, you have a right to be emotional. And that's the difference, right? One demographic of people have decided to make it their brand to show that they have no humanity that they live by. They just live off of impulse, and whatever they want in that moment, they go and get it. The other demographic understands humanity and responds in a way that humans do. And even though that demographic pretends that they don't have emotion, they do. Because what happens when they're pissed off? They go and they storm the Capitol, right? And instead of taking the stairs, they try to climb a wall to show that they're really about their bit. We really mean business, right? Try to climb a wall and then can't do it and then fall and break your back. And now you got to go, and then you didn't even have insurance, right? So now everybody else's premiums got to go up to pay for your health care, right? Even though you hate Medicaid, right? So at the end of the day, like when people keep saying that they're emotional, it's a reality. For the things that have happened to Black people collectively, we have a right to be emotional. I want people to stop thinking that emotion is a sign of weakness. Emotion is human response. It's human nature, right? If somebody slaps your mom in the face, you're going to stand there stoic and act like it don't bother you? Like, be for real. And so I'm just at a space where it's like, I'm tired of everybody like straddling the fence. So like Van Jones to me is somebody who he'll dip his foot in the Black people pool just to get a little bit of leverage and credibility. And then he'll run back to go and try and be accepted in the spaces where people already do not want him, right? They already don't want him there. But again, his core audience is white people. So he has to, again, keep them appeased. And so he'll run right back and forth to the Foolery every single time. And every time the Blackness wears off, he runs back to the Black pool, dips a little toe in there, says a little quote or something, or says something with a little Southern accent, or, you know, maybe he cries because Joe Biden gets elected or something. And then he runs right back to the same nonsense and keeps trying to somehow sanitize and water down the atrocities of white nationalism and act like it's not a real thing that's happening in this country. So we are past conversations. Every time I hear somebody say we need to have a conversation, we've been conversing forever. We've been having conversations upon conversations. We've been marching in suits. We've been singing. We've been building signs. We've been nonviolent. We've started coalitions. We were in basements. We prayed to Jesus. We tried to have the denominations join together. Let's praise God together. We've done it all, right? And the burden is always on us to overextend ourselves to try to get the other group to see the humanity in us. Stop thinking they're going to see it in you. They're not. And so the minute you realize that that's what you're up against, you move very different. One of the things I always say, like, I don't know how to say it, but one of the reasons I don't really have a lot of filter on this channel is because I know who I'm talking to. And I know who this channel is for. And I'm not worried about pissing off any other group of people that doesn't like what I got to say. Because who's going to beat my ass about it? Nobody. So my thing is, I don't know. I'm over it. Like, God. And to further prove my point, because again, the other thing that Van Jones was saying, like, I was just so impressed because, you know, he wanted to have a conversation. He was pointing for a way out of all the things that's going on in the country with Civil War. He was looking for a way out. I'm like, a way out of what? A storm he created? The man was literally on a tour to talk shit and get everybody riled up, to stir up the pot, and then specifically do it to college students, kids that are 18, 19, 20 years old, haven't got their feet wet in life yet, haven't quite figured out their politics, still aren't really in a space to always articulate everything that they want to say yet, just because they haven't lived enough. And this is not to down and whack people that are in college, but just understand college is a journey to self-reflection in life, in addition to trying to get a career, right? College is when you learn who you are. College is when you start to develop your politics. College is when you start to see the world differently. And he knows that. So him at 31, knowing that he just came out of that realm of space, he knows that he can latch into the emotional appeal of different folks, get them riled up, ask them different questions, and then, you know, cut them off every 2 seconds while they're trying to respond, get them flustered, do a whole bunch of gotcha moments. There's a whole purpose behind how he moved. And honestly, if Van Jones had gone on Charlie Kirk's show, Van Jones would have got eaten alive, because Van Jones doesn't have the range for the kind of conversation he thought he would have been able to lead. Van Jones would have caved in that conversation. He would have been all of a sudden trying to steer the conversation around, well, let's see what we have in common. Even though this man just told you you ain't ish, told you that you are inferior, that you have inferior genetics, that everything wrong with society is your community, your people, what it is you come from, what it is you think you believe in, and why you're not worthy, and why you should be kissing the feet of him, somebody who dropped out of college. And this is not to whack anybody who's dropped out of college, but just the reality, the audacity to not even complete your education, but then talk about who's qualified and unqualified to be in a space where people actually went and got degrees for the very thing that you wish you could have been, right? A mess. And so I always say this too. When people kind of try to paint it as if the burden is on us as Black people to always, you know, take the high road. Let me tell you where the high road was. When slavery ended, did Black people collectively go and say, we about to get y'all, and spend the next 200 years whacking white folks and finishing them off and burning down their stuff and giving them everything they gave us? No, what did Black people do? Black people were like, you know what? We just want to build our life. We want to be left alone. Now, we do expect that we get the services that, you know, everybody else gets. But other than that, it is what it is. We're going to do our thing. You do yours, right? We have never collectively just gone out of our way to always go and disturb or seek vengeance on white America collectively. Never, right? Even during civil rights era, right? Getting sprayed and whacked with the hose. Yeah, we had some movements. We had the Black Nationalist movement. You had some people who were like, okay, we had enough. It was always the conversation of fighting back. It was never the conversation of going and starting something. It was never the conversation of let's target this group. It was never the conversation of we're going to make them feel what we've never done that collectively. It's never been a thing. But you know what? Guess who always still was bothering us every single time, right? We go and do our own thing. They say, we got to be a part of that. We got to have our hands in this. We got to have our hands on that. You know, even when there was an effort to try to make us whole with Reconstruction, what did they do? Oh, hell no, we're not having that. We're about to gut that. And right, even when the first Civil Rights Act of 1875 passed, what happened? They went and gutted it and got it up out of there. And that opened the door for Jim Crow for the next 80 plus years. Like everything ties to that collective and how they move and the violence and the vengeance that is in them, right? And has always been. But somehow everybody wants to be on the pedestal of, let me do the performative. I'm such a Christian. I'm one of the good ones. I can see the love and the Christianity in you, my brother. That's lovely. That's fine and dandy. But you also need to be realistic. You need to look at things from a structural standpoint and what has been the pattern? What has been the cause and effect? What has been the reality? Are there individuals who are lovely people, who mean well, who you get along? Yes, right? I can be cordial with anybody. I can get into any space and fit right in. But I also know where I'm at, right? And I also know how I move a little bit differently in different spaces because I've become a bit more observant. I can't be as comfortable because it's like the antennas just go off. I'm looking for something, just waiting for a sign to see something that's out of whack, right? And so, again, it's just like we've been on the receiving end of the nonsense this entire time. And so this whole idea of always painting it as if both sides are in the wrong, we got to come together. One side is in the wrong and keeps whacking the other side over and over and over. And then this side is just getting whacked. We're supposed to all of a sudden be like, it's okay. It's okay. Oh, we know you didn't mean. Oh, okay. Well, we'll turn the other way. Like, be for real. So I need y'all to get some backbones. Like, stop being so damn weak. Like, my God. And I think Van Jones is tall, too. That's what pisses me off. You can't be tall and be a punk. Like, come on. Oh, my God. And the other thing is, it's so bad. I don't even have to reference the past anymore when I want to use examples of the things that I'm talking about. I can literally just talk about 2025. I can just talk about the last 8 months. All of the policy that is directed and aimed against Black people collectively. I could be mute and never bring up slavery again, never bring up sharecropping, never bring up redlining, never bring up being left out of the GI Bill, never bring up being left out of the New Deal, never bring up initially being left out of Social Security, never bring up housing discrimination, job discrimination. I could leave it all out and just specifically talk about 2025. And I got enough stuff to paint a picture of just how vile that community still continues to be and what they still stand behind. Play with somebody else. That's just, I'm tired of everybody doing the mental gymnastics. I'm like, can y'all stand up? Stand up. All right, I'm going to pause because I've been talking for a really long time. So I'll read some comments and then we'll go from there. Y'all going to have me cussing people out of work tomorrow. All right, okay, let's see what we got going here. Somebody said Melissa Hortman died the same way. Thank you, Tyler. Exactly. That's my point. Somebody said, did I hear about the gold statue? Yeah, that gold statue at the National Mall. Whatever. Whatever. Hopefully it melts in the sun. Let's see. Somebody said, why is he worthy of a national holiday? I didn't even know who he was until he died. It's just painting. Like, I'll say this current era that we're in, because it's so chaotic, it's the perfect time to do all of the most out-of-pocket things possible if you are a white American, because you might have a chance to get it done. Remember how I said, maybe about a year before the election, I said when it came to the white nationalism and everything else like that, they were going to start throwing everything at the wall. And even though a lot of things would kind of like get thrown out in court or be considered against the law, there were going to be little things that slipped through here and there that became reality. And so we're living through that, where a lot of the little things are becoming reality. And it's starting to become more and more and more of these little things that are becoming reality. Because again, now that we also have a Supreme Court that's compromised and everything, look, Orange Man is using the Supreme Court like customer service. He calls them every week about something. Every week. Hey, I need you guys to vote on this, right? Every time. So that's where we're at. And so in this moment, anybody who wants to just be an outright terrible person can do so with no consequence, to the point where you can just be an outright racist out loud and keep your job. Like, think of the guy that was on the what's that, the Jubilee thing. I don't like that because I think it's a stupid show. I think the idea is crazy, because I think you give platforms to people that have vile ways of viewing the world, and then it just brings a larger audience to that kind of mindset. But think about when it was Amanda Seals and all the fascists and all. No, not Amanda Seals. I'm sorry. The other guy, the guy that Mahatman, I forgot his last name. He's like the journalist. I want to say he's on MSNBC. And it was him against all the fascists, right? And the way that all of them were so open about their racism and thought, and when he was like, "Are you a fascist?" Well, yeah, I am. Like, they don't even care anymore, right? Because it's now a space where it's allowed, it's okay. And so this is the perfect time for all of the terrible things to take place that people are going to do. Because again, now this period will not last forever. Like, understand at some point things will shift in another direction. But at this moment in time, and we don't know how long this moment might be, it might be the next 3 years, it might be the next 20, it might be the next 60, who knows? But in this moment, it's the opportunity for every person who wants to do the most vile things to get everything that they've ever wanted accomplished. And so they're going to continue to throw everything at the wall, because that's the reality. Think back to when I did the video on DEI, maybe a year and a half ago, and I played that clip where the college dean, I think it was the white woman, and this was a school, I think it was in Iowa, right? The school was like 97% white, and she was saying, well, we have to make the school a bit more comfortable for our white male students here. And I'm like, they already got everything. How much more do they need? But like, again, in the moment when she said that, it sounded so controversial. They say that today, it's just the norm, right? It just sounds like, well, that's where we're at right now, right? And so, a mess. Avocado Queen said, what is your opinion on what will happen to Black people who have chosen to align themselves basically with the Klan? Listen, you'll be collateral. At some point, you always find out what the reality is. They'll use you. Like, if you can, and I think I said that on the last video, like, when you operate as a mouthpiece for white supremacy, as somebody who is not white, you're just helping them achieve what it is that they're trying to get to much faster. Right? Because they know they can use you as leverage to say, see, what we're doing isn't that bad, because look how he's a part of it. He agrees, right? And so they continue to do whatever they do and do what they do. And eventually, when it gets down to the wire, like, remember the example I always used to use. Let's say it's the apocalypse, right? The world is ending. And they've decided that they're going to try to save as many people and try to repopulate whatever planet we all had to go to. So if we all had to evacuate the planet on ships by race, no matter how much tap dancing you do, no matter how much of the Black people can be racist too, or I'm Black and I wasn't a fit, you can do that all day. At the end of the day, guess what ship they're going to make you get on? You're going to be right on the ship with me. I'll be looking at you like this, saying we ain't got no room. You go on over there with them, right? And then I already said it'd be a thing where they probably sabotage our ship anyway. Ours won't even take off, right? We'll be ready to take off, and they done punched a hole in the fuel tank so we can't even take off. You guys can't take, no, well, good luck. Whew, tough, right? They always find out and they always learn. Look at Diamond and Silk. Diamond died tap dancing, and Trump didn't even remember her name. Herman Cain died tap dancing, especially at the peak of COVID when we didn't even have, I don't even think the vaccine was out yet, right? At that rally and everything like that, dead, all right? Not even acknowledged, not a word, nothing, right? They learn every time. Tim Scott been tapping so much, he even got married to somebody he don't want to be with, and he still ain't got a cabinet position, right? They'll learn. It is what it is. And I always say, I just remember how people moved in this era, because some folks, you don't get a pass to come back. I told you, there's that other lady who I don't like bringing her name up on here because people are starting to get funny again and trying to act like all of a sudden she's down with us. She is not. Y'all know who I'm talking about. Once they show you who they are, remember they built their brand on your oppression. They built their brand and their come up on painting your image to be dumbed down and inferior to everybody else for the very demographic that they wanted to align with. All right. Now, when the checks start getting funny, they got to find a new grip. They come back home. Stay over there. No. Do you like Uncle Pete in the attic? You just stay in there with the door locked. You can't even come out for Sunday dinner. You'd be lucky if you get a plate. All right. Let's see. I already told you about Hakeem Jeffries. I told you about him before October 2023 when I saw him at that one spaz. Nope. He's on some weird stuff. Let's see. Okay. Bliss, I said, I will not waste your energy trying to reason with white supremacy. Like, that's what I'm not wasting my time arguing with anybody to see my humanity. I just see you for what you are, and I'm gonna keep it moving. Why waste all of my youth? I'm getting old. All of my youth, right? All of my able-bodiedness at the moment, and to spend time trying to talk to a wall that's never gonna move. I'd rather utilize that energy and time and space to empower my own. Right, and help build up the next generation, and also ensure that the oldest generation that's on their way out will be taken care of and will be okay, right? Because they had to deal with all the same nonsense we dealt with in their era and everything else like that. They should not be in their 80s and 90s still having to fight. We're supposed to make sure grandma and grandpa and great grandma and the church mother and the church missionary and all the elders are good. They're supposed to be all right. We're supposed to make sure they're good at this point because they did the best that they could with the resources and the reality that they were living in, right? And I also feel like I heard, by the way, I think October 9th, I heard this on Reed Daniel Favors. She was going to have a special for those who listen to Urban View, where on October 9th, she actually wanted to have a special where she has elders call in, elders who were around for the Jim Crow and everything else like that, and just to give their insight on what worked, what didn't, what can we learn in this era. One of the things I've always been saying for years on this channel is that we, for some reason, drop the ball when it comes to working together cross-generationally. And a lot of it has to do with every generation has a different experience, but then every generation thinks their generation is the best and they know more. And so a lot of times we end up repeating the same cycle over and over and over, right? And so anyway, October 9th, for those who listen to Urban View, is channel number 126 on SiriusXM. October 9th, the Reed Daniel Favors show, I think, comes on either 10 or 11 o'clock in the morning. And even old elders on here who want to call in, check that out. I really do like her show. She does a great job of like ironing out history. But that was one of the things. But yeah, again, like I said 2 lives ago, the conversation of being in community. That's where we have to be right now. Being in community, like I said 2 lives ago, and having discernment, like I said on the last live. That will save us a lot of headache and heartache, later down the line. At this point, with how active things are going with regard to them dismantling all of our rights day by day and then playing in our face and acting like it's normal, in addition to the fact that the country is becoming destabilized, is understand things are about to get a whole lot worse. You're going to need to be in community and you need to have some discernment about what's going on because people are about to start becoming very dog eat dog. There's going to be some people who you thought were your friends or thought were your colleagues or you thought y'all were cool because y'all both liked rap music or liked the movie or something, and folks' true colors are going to start coming out when a conversation of resources comes into question. So yeah, you better understand. Okay. Anyway, Ayana J said that turn the other cheek BS has folks begging for scraps. Like exactly. Like I said on the last live, I have no more cheeks to turn. That's it. You only get to hit me about 1 or 2 times before I swing back. Like, I turn that cheek what does Steve Harvey say? When I turn that cheek, when I come back around, you better not be there. Right? Back when he actually still used to be funny. But anyway, let's see. Somebody said Van needs to speak for himself. Exactly. Like, you know, unless you have been nominated by the Black delegation, which doesn't really exist in this moment, you don't get to just go and nominate yourself to be the spokesperson for Black folks. That's like what's his name, Emmanuel Aiko, the sportscaster at that time, where he was talking about, oh, well, because, you know, because he's originally from Nigeria, but he's like, you know, because I haven't had the same experience as Black Americans, there's a different way that I can respond to the conversations on racism because I won't be as emotional. Remember our conversation about emotional? And so he tried to nominate himself to speak on behalf of Black folks. Just sit down, and that's why you ain't working now. But y'all gonna learn. Okay. Somebody said, did I hear what? Wait, let me see. Where's that? Oh, did I hear what Laura Loomer called Jasmine Crockett? I did. You know what? I'll entertain it for now, but understand that a lot of times they're doing that. Remember how I just did the whole speech about this is the moment to just do whatever? Laura wouldn't have done that 10 years ago, but she can do it now. But while we're at it, I'll go ahead and show the quote just so y'all can see who y'all trying to, well, not y'all, but y'all can see who everybody's trying to be friends with so bad. All right, so let me pull up the quote here that she had. Great question, by the way, because I can have fun with this for a little bit. Let me cook for a quick second. All right, so of course, Jasmine Crockett, of course, was another one who was like, I'm not about to do this whole desanitization of you know who and act like what he did was okay just because all of a sudden he's no longer with us. So now we're going to lie about his image. And so they have, you know, she says what she says about, yeah, he's not the kind of person I would align with. He goes against everything I stand for. So Laura Loomer says, it hurts my heart that we have ghetto Black who hate America serving in Congress. But they didn't stop there, right? So, of course, they got to double down, right? Because they love to do this thing where they, especially white women that are on the conservative side that line up with this white nationalism stuff, they love to pretend that they are super tough. And they talk a lot of trash on the internet and never say it in the street, right? And so then she doubled down and she said, Jasmine Crockett's Jasmine for U.S. homeboys and homegirls are big mad I called her what she is, ghetto. I guess I finna watch my back. God forbid Shaniqua pops a cap in my the fact that some of these are like very 1990s references. Oh, sorry, you feels me? Okay, you know what? Laura, first of all, like I'll just say this. I just feel that Laura has other things to worry about. Let's start here, right? I don't normally go after people's looks because, like I said, all it takes is one car accident and you'll be an infomercial. But you have a lot going on right here, a whole lot happening right here. Let's just go. Let's start here with this this bronzer tanner thing. Whatever you're trying to do, I don't know if you're trying to do the exotic thing, whatever. Y'all love to talk about Black folks, but you love to try to be our same complexion at the same time. So you have that going, and I don't know why y'all do that because the more y'all tan and bronze, the more sunspots y'all get over time, and it just makes you look older a lot faster because this girl is only like 31, right? Looking like she's. I don't know what's going on with the eyes. I have no idea what's going on here. I don't know if it's Botox and filler, but clearly the eyes are not able to do what they need to do, right? They can't close properly. That might be the filler and the Botox in these cheeks that are overfilled. And what's going to end up happening is when she lets this Botox dissolve and these fillers dissolve, these cheeks are going to sag because the thing about Botox and all those fillers is it kind of stretches the elasticity in your face. And so when you finally decide to take it out, your face kind of drops. So then you have to actually put more in or get a facelift in order to kind of keep everything sitting up high. But of course, once you get the facelift, this gets pulled back, which means her hairline is going to go to about right here, right? And then these eyebrows are going to go a little bit higher than about here, right? And then his face length looks a little bit yanked. And when you do the yanking, see how you got this turkey neck right here? It's going to stretch this neck a little bit more. So there's going to be a few more turkey neck lines in there. Then when we get to whatever's going on with these lips here, same thing as far as the filler. Like it's going to be the same thing. You keep filling all this up. When you take the filler out, the volume of the lips is going to be very questionable. And so at 31, I just think you have bigger things to worry about because you are already aging like a sliced apple and life has just started, right? There's that. Enjoy. Anyway, let's get to our next. Well, let me read a few comments and then I'll get to the next. Actually, I was already reading the comments, right? Okay, I'll do two more and then we'll keep it moving. All right, looking like a bad ex-member of the Jersey Shore, like you didn't make the show. All right, but yeah, so people like that you don't even give it energy to. You just let them stay in stupid land. They're not even worth the energy. And you see, Jasmine doesn't even entertain it, right? Because at the end of the day, Jasmine has her JD and her law degree and her career. Laura has nothing but clout and trying to piss people off. So enjoy that. Oh, Nancy Mace too. She can catch it too. Oh Lord, hard faces. Anyway, somebody. Let's see. Exactly. Yeah, she's like 30, 31, right? I'm older than her, right? Well, I got a good 6, 7 years on her. Yeah. Okay. Some of you guys have left super chats and I forgot to read them. I'm sorry. Let's see. CC said, "Oh, what up, CC? What cracked me up about the CK service is the grinder app outrage in the area." Oh, I did read about that. Y'all out there having a good time, huh? Okay. Lil I3D said, "Child tokens get spent every time. And that other person I brought up earlier is learning that the hard way right now. When you saw what Nick Fuentes told her, that you pretty much are a token, you will never be accepted." I said, whew. And to me, that's like some token on token violence, because Nick Fuentes, he identifies as white and Mexican. And so I said, technically, you ain't in the club either, but you just have the passage and the look to get away with it. But when it gets down to the wire, when they start talking delineation, Nick Fuentes, you're going to be going too. So it's like they're canceling each other out. Jasmine Jones said, "White nationalists accusing black folks of being emotional is peak comedy when it's their fear and anger of losing their perceived power, which is causing them to destroy the country and the world," right? Y'all are literally going against science at this point, which is, that's what I need to get to. Man, a mess. Calvin said, "Calvin, that's the after surgery picture you got to put on number 4. Well, see, that was the first picture that popped up. Okay, well, let me see what she looked like before. I don't like whacking people on how they look, but since she shook the table, we gonna let the table shake. Loomer. Let's see. Let's Loomer before. Okay, Laura, what is it that we're doing here? Okay, all right. I'm gonna share. Y'all asked for it, so don't say I'm giving y'all what y'all asked for. All right, this is what she originally. We're gonna go right here. Okay. All right, this is. It is what it is. Okay, I do want to shift gears. I want to jump to Tylenol. All right, this one is very interesting to me. So, as we know, RFK is in charge of all of our healthcare. The guy who has a worm that has died in his brain, the guy who was the heroin addict, the guy who eats roadkill, the guy who decapitated a bear and then decided to drive it to town and drop it off, the guy who's done a whole lot of very questionable things. Also, the guy who's, some people think he might have something to do with the demise of his ex-wife. I don't know. I ain't got nothing to do with that. But the guy who just got a lot going on, he's over our health. Now, for some reason, he's had an obsession initially with vaccines and autism. So back in April, if you remember, I did want to pull that. I'm going to pull that up really quick. I didn't write it down. Let me see. I'm going to write it because federal funding, federal NexStar, just a note for later. Okay, perfect. Anyway, so he was somebody who, again, he was convinced that vaccines cause autism and blah, 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 blah. Not because of any research that he's done, but because he said so. And so in April, he made a pledge stating that, his HHS, that's all of the 13 agencies that are under the Health and Human Services bucket. So that's like CDC, NIH, all those different agencies, right? That by September, they would have the correlation between vaccines and autism, and it would explain everything. That was supposed to be by September. September has come. So instead, because clearly there's been no research, there's nothing done because you done laid off and fired everybody. There's nobody to do the research. They needed another scapegoat. So they decided, boom, it's Tylenol. Pregnant women taking Tylenol. That's why everybody has autism. I also want to say, I want us to get out of the habit of painting autism as a problem, right? They talk about autism as if it is something bad. It's just a different experience that other people have with how they interact socially. That's it, right? And so when we paint people who have different experiences as others, that becomes a problem, right? I just want people to remember that when they talk about people that have whatever conditions they have. Anyway, and so September's here, boom, surprise. Now it's Tylenol. My question is, well, when did this research happen? Because let's talk about it. If you're going to say that pregnant women taking Tylenol causes autism, there hasn't even been enough time for you to conduct a study. Because let's talk about what you're going to need. First of all, you need your control variables. You're going to need women that are newly pregnant, like brand new pregnant, haven't taken any aspirin, just they're still in the throwing up phase, right? And you're gonna have to have women who, you need a whole bunch of women that are brand new pregnant, right? And now you're gonna have some that need to take some and some who don't. That means we at least need 9 months just for them to get through the pregnancy, right? And so you're gonna have the 9 months. You're gonna have some that are taking the aspirin when they have headaches, and you're gonna have the others who just have to ride it out. But then once the baby is born, usually the signs of autism don't show up until about 18 to 24 months, right? So now you need to also add that. That means we have at least a minimum of 27 months of research, right? And that's assuming that all forms of autism automatically show up at the 18th month, right? That's assuming, right? And so the other thing too is you never release a study or your new theory off of just one trial. You'd have to do this for multiple trials and multiple experiences across different agencies, across different labs, so you can get consistent results. So this is the kind of study that would take years, not April, May, June, July, August. We're not even out of it. 4.5 months, right? Somehow in 4.5 months, this man with no research has outsmarted the tens of thousands of scientists that have been doing this research for years and actually found ways to develop and find treatments and everything else to make people's experience that do have autism a bit smoother. He somehow knows more than all of them, and it was the Tylenol. It was the Tylenol. The other thing is, when we're talking about autism, it's, I'll just say, we're in a space where, because we've let so many privileged men, specifically white men, just get away with just doing whatever they want. Here we are, right? And my thing is, when the research was there, you chose to fire all researchers. Let me pull up the article I want to reference really quick, right? Here we go, right here. So concerned about autism. All right, now this is from April. Federal funding cuts imperil next generation of autism. Experts say, I'm looking at the wrong thing. Autism researchers. As the International Society for Autism Research's annual meeting begins, its next president reflects on a brewing crisis, right? Are we at risk of losing the next generation of autism researchers? This question is gaining urgency amid the recent drastic cuts to U.S. federal research funding. Threatened programs, including those that train and support early career researchers, and across the country, universities and medical schools are being forced to freeze graduate admissions. It's not even cutting the funding from those doing the study. You're not even letting the people get into the schools to even do the work and rescind offers to prospective students. The impact of the next generation of scientists, including those in autism research and training programs, will be significant. For instance, the first Center for Autism and Innovation at Vanderbilt University, which helps train autistic scientists in STEM fields, faces a loss up to $7.5 million in funding from the National Science Foundation. The hit to this program and others affect not just total numbers of trained scientists, but also undercuts important efforts to diversify and expand autism research. Expand the autism research training pipeline. Federal funding cuts will reduce pathways into the field, particularly for early career researchers from marginalized backgrounds. A postdoctoral university supplement from the U.S. National Institutes of Health launched my own autism research career. This funding, which I and my mentor at the time, Grace Barneck, now associate dean in the chair of the Chan of Occupational Service and Occupational Therapy at the University of Southern California, applied for in 2005, allowed me to collaborate with the internationally renowned researchers at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, published in high-impact journals, and ultimately build a successful funded research career. I also want to highlight again, when we're talking about high-impact journals, understand as everybody's doing their research in higher ed, a lot of times when these journals come out, these journals are the findings and the publications of research and study for years and years and years, and they've come to some kind of conclusion. And so when these publishings are released, this actually helps other people in academia or in the research now have a reference to utilize as they continue to build their research. So like science and that whole idea of research, it's all interconnected where everybody's working together. Even when we talk about internationally, our scientists and our experts and doctors are all working together to kind of fix these issues. But we've come into this space where Cuckoo Man and Doge and Elon and all of them just decided, let's go in here and just gut everything. And so here we are. So years and years of research and work are now being compromised. I'm going to bypass the rest of this article, but just understand that for somebody who cares so much about autism and cares so much about everything that's happening, you see that they pretty much gutted and can't cut the research, right? And so I think what will also happen for a company like Tylenol, their brand is in question. Tylenol has 24 different products. So I'm sure there's going to be a massive lawsuit that comes, right? And so the thing that's crazy is in 6 months, this administration has taken us from being one of the leading pioneers in research and innovation in science to the laughing stock of the world, right? Because at the same time, even though I hate that I have to bask in this because we have to be collateral to it, at the same time, I'm almost enjoying seeing the incompetence in real time, right? This whole anti-DEI, get everybody out because we're all unqualified. And now you got all of these unqualified white folks running everything, and we see how it's going. This is the best of the best that y'all got to offer, and it's telling us everything that we need to know. Where, again, the reality is other groups of people in this country spent years and years evolving and understanding that the world was always going to change and that they couldn't latch onto their whiteness to get by because we never had it to begin with. And so while everybody else saw the kind of world that they lived in and what was at stake, they used that as an opportunity to build themselves up, use that as an opportunity to get that education, to find a way out of no way. That's a very church term. To, lock in, to collaborate, to connect, to just expand their horizons, expand the scope of how they see the world. Understand that people who are from another country or speak another language or are of another religion or are of another race are not their enemy, but can be a collaborator to help build a more utopian society. However, the anti-DEI disciples they ain't had time for none of that because they've been raised to believe that they are the standard of operation when it comes to innovation, intelligence, and just qualifications. And when you operate and believe that you are the standard, you never challenge yourself. You never hold yourself to a higher standard because you can always get away with being collectively stupid because there's just that many of you that allow it to happen because you guys are the largest demographic when it comes to voting and everything else like that. And so you can always bask and hide into whiteness when things go wrong, right? And so that's the reality of what it is. And so I just it's a mess. But I will say, this has given other countries an opportunity to collaborate, and they've all kept it moving. They said, okay, the U.S. wants to cancel their cancer trial research. They want to cancel the research on this. We're not going to stop. And so you're hearing about all these different innovations that are coming out everywhere else. Meanwhile, we're still over here telling ourselves we're the greatest country in the world, and everything's falling apart. Stay in that delusion if you want to. All right? And the other thing is, too, a lot of the folks that are so anti-science and stuff, a lot of it is because, again, when you get into science and you find out what the issues are, you find out the origins of certain things, now here comes the regulation. Here comes the things to make sure that whatever was causing problems, whatever was causing, lung issues because there was asbestos in all of the buildings that were built before the 70s. Now we have to put in regulation where there needs to be standards with how these rules are implemented so people don't die from cancers and everything else because of asbestos, right? That becomes regulation. Well, that regulation has also been gutted, by the way. So there is no regulation with that anymore, which means people that are into real estate or construction, they can cut corners, they can save money, and they can continue to do whatever they want because now the buildings don't have to be to the same standard and code. And then in addition to that, let's also attack the conversation of lawsuits and let's try to put a cap on what people can sue for and how much they can sue for. So when things really do hit the fan, we won't really feel the burn of the atrocities and the bad things that we are doing, right? That's where we're at. Crazy. Let me pause for a second, read some comments, and then I want to talk about Sakir Everett. Freaking Tylenol. You're playing in everybody's face. Sounds like he swallowed a weed whacker, but want to talk about how everybody else is unhealthy. Okay. Somebody said the before is no. Oh, that's about that lady. My thing is when you dish it out, don't be mad when you can't take it. Tyler said, as someone with autism, this is awful. That's the thing that I'm saying. I don't like the way that the conversation of autism is being delivered, right? People are doing it in a way where, like I said, it's painted like it's a problem. It's painted like these people they need to be put away. Instead of taking the time to say, well, let's understand what their experience is so we can create a space where they, are comfortable and they can do all the things that they are. Because and as somebody who's worked with children that have autism, right? The only difference is you just move a bit different with how you do things socially. There's nothing else that's really different, literally, right? One of my kids, actually, I can't show the kids pictures. I had one kid that was on the spectrum. That kid got into 6 colleges by the time he graduated. Ended up going to George Mason, thriving, doing wonderful, right? And so I don't like how we paint the picture of those who have autism at all. And I don't know what RFK's obsession with that is. Thank you. So also, not all pregnant women take Tylenol, nor can Tylenol, or I'm sorry, not all pregnant women take Tylenol, nor can all take Tylenol. So they can't prove that. There's no statistical data. There's no research. They haven't given us what lab it was coming from. There's nothing. And the other thing too, when there's research that is released, it's also allowed to be challenged where another lab can say, okay, let me see everything that you did, and then we're going to follow it. Remember Bad Doctor? It was like 3 different, there was a documentary on it, there was a Netflix show on it, and I think there was a Hulu show on it with the doctor that had lied about, oh, I've been doing all this research and I can make I can use stem cell research to make a new trachea for people. And so he had been lying this whole time. And because people weren't really, well, people eventually did, but initially people were not backing and checking his research and seeing everything. And they let this man go and operate on all these people and put trachs in their throat. And it was literally some plastic and some rubber. And because it wasn't live matter or live tissue, it wasn't alive. And the people were literally dying from the inside, also choking and couldn't breathe. And every patient died except for like 1 or 2. And eventually it was because other people came and realized this research doesn't add up, right? And so that's why we always have, in the same way we're supposed to have checks and balances in this country, there's like checks and balances when it comes to research and stuff, because once you put something out there, it affects all of us. So there's that. Lord, make it make sense. Marlon Harrison said, I saw a doctor earlier this year say the reason why autism, ADHD, dyslexia is on the rise is because people are understanding it more and people are getting tested more than 20 years ago. That would make perfect sense, right? Especially when there's times where we, like, think of the phrase or the term like neurodivergent. That's a term most people don't even remember hearing just 10 years ago, right? As there's new research, as there's new findings, people become a bit more in the know of just how different all of our experiences are, and we understand and learn more about what is not our experience, right? And that's kind of where things work. So I don't understand why we're in this era of anti-intellectualism. And I think what pisses me off the most about it is there are some people who are latching onto it and building a brand with it for a come up financially. And some of these podcasters y'all run behind, so be careful, right? Okay, I want to move on. Let's talk Sakir Everett. Let me pull that article up for you guys. All right. Ooh. All right, here we go. All right, Michigan mom says 11-year-old son was expelled after dismantling classmate's loaded gun at school. All right. The incident happened in May at Dwight Ritz School for the Arts in Lansing after a student allegedly brought a loaded gun to school. A Michigan woman said her 11-year-old son was expelled after he disassembled a loaded gun his classmate brought to school. Savicha McClurkin said she's been trying to enroll her son, Sakir Everett, into another school ever since he was abruptly kicked out of Dwight Ritz School of the Arts in Lansing in May. I'm upset with everybody, McClurkin said in a phone interview Monday. I'm not just mad at the district. I'm mad at some of these teachers, administrators, as well as the city because they did not handle this right. In a statement, the Lansing School District said it issued its decision after a thorough investigation, including review of video evidence, numerous witness statements, and careful deliberation, as well as a disciplinary hearing. The incident happened after an unidentified student allegedly brought a loaded gun to the student pulled out the gun in a bathroom and gave my son a firearm. Like, here, take this, hold on to this. Sakir, who knows how to hunt and learned about gun safety from his godfather, knew the weapon was not allowed in school. Sakir's natural reaction was, there's no way I'm going to hold on to this gun all day, his mother said. He proceeded to go to class and dismantled it in class. There was a teacher in class and everything. People were around and everything. After her son took the gun apart, McClurkin said he put it inside of a heater in the classroom and threw the bullets in the garbage can. He didn't want it to be on his person, but he didn't want nobody to mess with it, she said, about why her son dismantled the firearm. Asked why Sakir didn't immediately tell an adult about the gun, McClurkin said it was because he was scared and was never taught what to do in that situation. That's not a situation that normally happens for kids. Oh my gosh, poor thing. Other students eventually told an administrator about the firearm, she said. The district said in its statement that the full account of the incident has not been reported, but that it could not comment further because of privacy laws. Disciplinary action would not have been warranted for disarming another student, the district said. Please know, however, that the safety of our students and staff remains our paramount interest, and decisions will continue to be made in accordance with that principle. According to the district, police took the student who brought the firearm into custody. Lansing police did not respond or immediately respond to a request for comment on Tuesday. McClurkin appeared at a Lansing school board meeting Thursday to try to get answers, NBC affiliate WILX reported. He's 11 years old, 7th grade, Never been in trouble before, she told the board. McClurkin told NBC News that she is still fighting to resolve the situation. She also accused the district of failing to give her an alternative option for her son. Since May, he has been denied admission to 4 schools because of the expulsion on his record, she said. In the meantime, she's keeping him busy with sports and an unaccredited online schooling program. They really just did. Not just my son, they did me wrong too. All I'm trying to do is just be a good parent and make sure that my son is getting an education, she said. It's crazy, right? It's a lot. I'll say this. I think what people also need to remember is when there's an expulsion from school, that student cannot go to any school in that district. And this is where it gets tricky, right? Because depending on the state laws, a lot of times parents can't even register their child in another district because of the zip code. Because sometimes, depending on which state you're in, and there's 24 states that abide by this, it can count as enrollment fraud, where you can possibly be prosecuted and also face jail time. And so a lot of times when there's a student that is expelled, the burden on the parents becomes something that's extremely difficult, because in the same way when students are suspended, most schools have it set up where if you're suspended from school, because I don't know, you got to fight, you can't go to school for 5 days, you also can't take whatever test was scheduled on that Tuesday. You can't do any homework. They let you fail all of those things. And like being from Washington State, they had a thing back in the day called the Becca Bill, where with the Becca Bill, if you missed more than 13 days of school, you couldn't pass that grade. And so say you had a really rough year. You got in a fight at the beginning of the year and got suspended for 5 days. You got in a fight in February, got suspended another 5 days. You can't have but 3 more unexcused absences, and you can't pass that grade at all, right? I don't know if that's still a law anymore, but that was a thing at one point in time. But that's the reality. And I think too, what's sad is because again, this is a kid that's 11 years old in 7th grade, and I think to the mom's point about, he was never taught what to do in that situation. To me, I see that as a reality because, like, is this the threshold we've now hit where we have to also talk to our kids about what to do if a student gives you a gun? It's so unheard of, but it's starting to become the reality. And it goes back to the conversation of zero tolerance, right? You got to think back. They had the Gun-Free School Zones Act in 1994. That's when we started getting a lot of the zero tolerance when it comes to like gun safety and stuff. I'm going to pull up a quote really quick about the Gun-Free School Zones Act, just to paint this picture. And mind you, this was kind of like a child or a grandchild that came out of the crime bill, right? Because remember, this is 1994. So this is around that same time we're having the crime bill conversation, and crime is so bad, and the critique is that Democrats aren't tough enough on crime like the Republicans are. Democrats would like to get into more power because they finally got Clinton in office. Republicans have been running everything since the Reagan years. And so, we start seeing the tide shift. So as originally enacted on March 31st of 1994, as part of the Goals 2000 Educate America Act, Public Law 103-227, and reauthorized on October 20th of 94 as part of the Improving America Schools Act of 94, Public Law 103-382, the GFSA required each state receiving ESEA funds to have, in effect, a state law requiring local educational agencies, LEAs, to expel from school for a period of not less than 1 year a student who is determined to have brought a weapon to school. The GFSA also required that a state's law allow the chief administering officer of the LEA in question to modify the expulsion requirement on a case-by-case basis. The U.S. Department of Education provided non-regulatory guidance on previous GFSA provisions to governors and chief state school officers on August 1st, hey, that's my birthday, of 94, January 20th of 95, November 3rd of 95, and October 2nd of 2000. So this ties into, again, a conversation of the zero tolerance. And so in this moment, the question kind of becomes, where does his case fall in this conversation? Because there's going to be people who say he should have told a teacher. And then there's going to be others who say, well, it looks like he possibly stopped what could have been a tragedy because in addition to having his weapon, he dismantled it and he discarded the bullets and made sure that nobody could take it. And so I think in this moment, this is my opinion. I personally feel there should be some leniency in this kid's case because I also think it kind of sucks that the kid can't even go to school now. And again, this is a kid that's 11 and 7th grade. He is ahead of the curve. And now it's like that conversation of opportunities being taken away from him because he thought he was doing the right thing. And again, 11 years old, I think we need to be honest about how would you move as whatever age you are. We're looking at things through the lens of our age at 29 or 30 or 45 or whatever. Put yourself in the shoes of being 11 years old again. I don't know how this aligns or what it should be, but I think the idea of expelling this kid, I think that was a step too far. And I think there needs to be a bit of nuance with how this goes, but it ties into that conversation of zero tolerance, where When it's zero tolerance, it's zero tolerance. It's what you get, right? To me, I think he saved the day, right? Now, I do wish he would have told an adult, but who knows? Maybe that was in the plan. Somebody else just got to it before him. It makes me think back to just like all of us have been in a situation before where you don't really know what to do sometimes. And I think in that moment, I think he was trying to iron out what he thought was best in that realm. Because who's to say that he went and told the teacher that this person had a weapon, but because it was on his person at that point in time, they blame it on him and he still gets expelled? Who's to say that he tries to report it, right? Because think back to the boy, the one whose parents actually had to go to jail, right? Remember the kid? Oh my God, the kid with the glasses. He did a mass shooting a few years back, and everybody knew he had a weapon at school, and it was reported a few times and nobody did anything. And then the mass shooting happened, and we saw that the parents were also arrested. Like, we've seen how things move, and who knows? Maybe he's seen these stories before and didn't know what to do. We'll see how that unfolds. I hate that happened to the kid, especially because it seems like he was really, he had a lot going on for himself. Again, 7th grade and 11 years old is very impressive. Ethan Crumbly, thank you, Bryson Stanley, killed those students in Oxford, Michigan, right? There had been reports that he had weapons. There had been reports that he was going to do this and do that. Nobody took it seriously. And look what happened, right? And so I just think because, again, when we talk about gun violence in this country, we have a government that doesn't care. We have politicians that don't care. It's not a priority that they'll do performative antics and bring out the pyrotechnics when stuff happens to who. But then there's no conversation about gun violence. It goes right back to the same thing. So it's a mess. All right, I want to get to Trey Reed as well. I'm sorry that this is such a heavier live. I do like to talk about happy stuff on occasion, but we are where we are, folks. Okay, let me pull up this next story. All right, let's get to Trey Reed. All right, Trey Reed. I'm sorry, Trey Reed. I'm sorry, I'm saying the name wrong. Forgive me. I'm tired. I gave y'all 2 videos today. My eyes are getting dry. Trey Reed's death mystery takes another shocking turn as Colin Kaepernick steps in, second autopsy to be conducted. All right. Synopsis: the death of DeMartravion Trey Reed, a 21-year-old black student found hanging from a tree at Delta State University, has been ruled a suicide by authorities, sparking controversy and skepticism. Amidst social media rumors and historical context of racial violence, the family challenges the autopsy results. A second autopsy of Trey, get the man's name spelled wrong on here. Okay. Trey Reed would be conducted by Colin Kaepernick, who will pay for an independent autopsy. All right. An autopsy of Trey Reed by Mississippi State's medical examiner concluded that his death was a suicide. The police department in Cleveland said the 21-year-old black student was found hanging from a tree on the campus. All right. We read that before. Even the social media buzzed with rumors that Trey Reed's hands and legs were broken. The authorities ruled out any foul play and said that he died by suicide. Former NFL quarterback and civil rights activist Colin Kaepernick will be covering the cost for the second an independent autopsy of Trey Reed. Reed, 21, was found hanging from a tree on the campus of Delta State University in Cleveland on Monday, September 15th. The young man was a student at school. The Cleveland Police Department announced in a news release on Thursday, September 18th, that the autopsy determined Reed died by suicide. How many times are they going to say that? Okay. Police said the Mississippi State Medical Examiner's autopsy findings are consistent with the initial investigation, determining the cause of death to be hanging in the mat. Okay, we get it. Something's off about this article. I don't like this one. What is Trey Reed's family saying? Even though officials had initially said there was no evidence of foul play in Trey Reed's cause of death, the case drew with widespread attention, skepticism, and calls for transparency. It evoked Mississippi's history of Jim Crow-era racist violence. The university campus in Cleveland is about 30 miles from a site associated with the 1955 lynching of Emmett Till. A preliminary examination conducted by Bolivar County Coroner Randolph Sills Jr. had earlier concluded Reed did not suffer any lacerations, contusions, compound fractures, broken bones, or injuries consistent with an assault. Concerns have been raised about the handling of this case. The family has challenged the autopsy results, and Colin Kaepernick's Know Your Rights campaign autopsy initiative will cover the cost of the independent autopsy. According to attorney Benjamin Crump, who is representing the family, Trey Reed's family revealed that they got to know everything from the media as the university informed them that Trey was found dead in the dorm room. Reed's grandfather, J.B. Reed, told reporters university authorities did not even say it was a possible suicide. Trey Reed's second autopsy. Civil rights attorney Ben Crump, who is representing the family, now has announced we know Colin Kaepernick is doing it. All right. Trey's death evoked the collective memory of a community that has suffered a historic wound over many, many years and many deaths. Peace will only come by getting the truth. Crump said in a statement, We thank Colin Kaepernick for supporting this grieving family in the cause of justice and truth. Collins Know Your Rights Camp Autopsy Initiative provides free of charge second autopsies for those whose family and friends have died in police custody or under suspicious circumstances. Ben Crump said that the autopsy will be conducted as soon as Reed's body is released by the state medical examiner. Let's see where I'm at. The family has also asked law enforcement to release video footage in connection with Reed's death. Delta State's Director of Public Safety said on Wednesday that it was investigating security footage according to Mother Jones. Trey's family deserves answers they can trust. Crump wrote in a statement, "We can not accept rushed conclusions when the stakes are high. The final toxicology reports pending and may take 2 to 4 weeks to complete." WREG reported all files and investigative materials were turned over to the FBI and the U.S. Attorney's Office for review as a part of the investigation. Reed's family has expressed concern regarding the way in which law enforcement and university have communicated about his death. Media outlets started reporting Reed's death prior to the family's knowledge of the incident. So I'll say this: it doesn't hurt to have an extra investigation, right? And because again, I keep thinking of Kendrick Johnson. Remember Kendrick Johnson in Georgia, where that is a case that is still going, right? Where the student is found in the wrestling mats, and then they initially claimed, oh, he climbed in the mats and must have suffocated. But, you know, there's the wound to his head. And then when they did the autopsy, what did they find when they did the private autopsy? All of the boy's organs were missing and his body was stuffed with newspaper. So when it comes to things like this, I fully support the idea of a second autopsy quickly, right? And again, because I'll say this. Anytime I see a story of Black people specifically lynching themselves, I always question. Because to me, and this is not to try to say that we have a certain way of doing those kind of things. To me, that just seems like a very odd way to make that choice because it's such an extensive task. It's not like just taking a weapon and there you go, or taking pills and there you go, or it's something that's so thought out and it's a cumbersome task and it takes a few minutes. And then it just doesn't add up to me. That's just my personal opinion. Don't take my opinion as law of the land, please. And because we've seen so many instances where Black people have been lynched, right? Especially when we're talking racial violence. And we've seen so many instances where Black people have been killed and then they lie and say that the person killed themselves. Like we've seen several police cases where an unarmed Black person is cuffed in the police car and somehow they die and it's told that they killed themselves. What's the case? It's either in Arkansas or Louisiana where there's a man, he gets detained for a marijuana charge, right? He's cuffed, put in the back seat, and then somehow he's shot in the head. And then they claim that he killed himself. And I said, but you guys would have frisked him before you put him in the car. Secondly, nobody's going to kill themselves over a marijuana charge because it's just going to be a misdemeanor. It's not going to be a felony. It's for the amount that they had. But we've seen too many cases like that. So a lot of times when I see these stories, it just makes me question, especially because, again, like the family said, they were told that he passed away in his dorm room. That is not the same as being found hanging from a tree, right? And there's things that I would want to know. I want to know how tall the tree is. Is this a tree that he could easily climb and do this with? Or is this a tree where, it takes some extra work? Because now I'm like, something doesn't add up. I just, in this current climate, with everything that's happening, and because, again, this is happening right after a major tragedy that has sparked just backlash against a lot of Black Americans in this moment, I don't put anything past anybody. So in this one, yeah, let's get the second autopsy. Let's see what's going on here because something doesn't add up. Let's see whatever footage they have, right? Anytime stuff starts getting suspicious and they don't want to release footage or they come up with a conclusion too quick, I'm like, hold on, that's a little too quick for my liking. So that's just where I'm at. All right, let me read some comments and we'll keep it going. Let's see. Down with the click. Somebody said, what about the kid who brought the gun? My guess would be that they also were expelled. They better have been, right? But it's interesting how you saw how the energy went from one kid who tried to defuse the situation to all the smoke goes to that kid. And now they're the face of this entire story. Because it's kind of like, my question is, the person who I think needs to be in the most trouble are the parents of the kid who brought the weapon to the school. Because as a gun owner and as a responsible gun owner, you're supposed to ensure that these things are not, accessible by the children in your house or by the people in your house who may need additional supervision, right? Those are the things that's supposed to be locked up somewhere. And the fact that this kid was able to get a weapon and also have bullets, right? That could have been a disaster. Too much going on. I did see this as well in the W. They said not to take away from this story. Just read that Mackenzie Scott donated $70 million to HBCUs. That may irritate the Cheeto chief. She's actually been donating a lot of money to a lot of causes for the last few years. Like even my center at one point got some like trickle down funds from a donation that she made, which was pretty cool. So kudos to those who are doing the right kind of work. Yeah. Let's see. Somebody said, is Crump the only black lawyer in America that can take these cases? What it is that I think there are some who, because there are other people that are definitely working these cases. With his situation, he's normally not the main attorney. He normally has a team of people. He kind of just serves as the face and the spokesperson. But I think a lot of times there are some who indirectly just kind of start to become the face of some of these trials. And most of us were introduced to Benjamin Crump during the Trayvon Martin situation. But no, there's tons of attorneys that are out there. But I think because Benjamin Crump has been able to kind of build a coalition, he's able to do a lot of pro bono stuff too. So I think that's why you see him a lot. But I won't really spend time whacking him because at least he's doing the work. But I think there are lots of other attorneys out there that are doing the work. They're just not in some of the more high profile cases. We can say that. All right. Let's see here. Somebody said the childhood was open, the match still sticks with me. That one, the Kendrick Johnson, I'm never gonna let that one. That one, and that black lady that had to sleep over with all them white women, and then somehow she fell off the balcony. That one too, I'm never gonna sleep well on because something don't add up. You don't just fall off a balcony. Like, absolutely not. Something ain't adding up. Piscean Beauty said, this is why I advocate for no guns in the household. It's more likely to be used in tragic ways in justifiable situations. I guess my thing to that, because my parents had guns in the house. We just didn't know. They had, my mama carries. Like, well, I want her to carry because she lit. I ain't telling you all her business, but as a woman of a particular age, and I want her to make sure she's good, right? But yeah, my parents definitely had weapons in the house. We just didn't know about them because they were never visible. We didn't know where they were. None of that. And I think they had 3 or 4 of them, right? My grandma kept a shotgun. She ain't play no games. And I guess it's also, times have also evolved and changed, because I know with my grandma's shotgun, we just knew not to touch it. But you can't really do that to you. That's not a justifiable reason to justify it being there, because if something happens and they say, well, we told him not to touch it, that's not going to fly in court. We just knew, right? We knew we were ever caught touching that thing, the kind of the whooping we would get. Right? So thank you, Avocado Queen. That was Tamla Horsford in Forsyth County, Georgia. Forsyth County, Georgia. Remember, that's that area that became an all-white town for years until about, 1986? Yeah, there's that. Okay. We need to start winding down. Okay. Let's see here. Jimmy Kimmel. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this. Jimmy Kimmel specifically as an individual is not my fight, but the fight is more so the conversation of free speech. That's where I'm at. Right. So we know that Jimmy Kimmel was yanked off the air. Right. He made some comments about Charlie Kirk and Trump. And so when I initially saw everything, I was like, let me go see what he said. I'm thinking this man has gone on there and cooked. Really, the one thing he really highlighted was that as Orange Man was pretending that he cared so much, Orange Man went and golfed. That was pretty much what was said. And I was like, that was worth getting the show yanked off the air like that. That don't add up. That wasn't controversial enough. I've heard Kimmel and Fallon and all of them say things that are a whole lot worse, right? And so I'm like, something here doesn't quite add up, right? And so they yanked it off the air. And the other challenge is like Sinclair Media Company, they own a whole bunch of ABC affiliates, and then NexStar owns a bunch of ABC affiliates. They're like, we're not going to show it. Disney pulls. Here comes the boycotts. Everybody's boycott Disney, boycott Hulu, so on and so forth. Which, in this moment in time, like we've been saying, we're coming into the age of authoritarianism. I feel like we're already living in it. We're just in denial about it. We keep saying, oh, we're coming into, an authoritarian government. We're already in it. We're living in it right now. We're just in the delusion of American exceptionalism. That's why people won't call it what it is, right? So in this moment, you're seeing, just like we said on the last live, one of the next steps is media, right? So you start to see the media get whacked. You saw the guy that's over FCC talking about, even The View. I'm looking at The View. We saw how The View didn't say much about Jimmy Kimmel, last Thursday? Now, Whoopi and them came on, yesterday and said, oh, you thought we weren't going to talk about it? I said, listen, Whoopi, I get it. It's y'all livelihood, but we're also not foolish. Y'all were told to be quiet until stuff cooled down, because now at this point the cool down is kicked in. The ABC's the show's airing tonight. It's probably on right now, from what I understand, but it's not airing on the Sinclair affiliates or the NexStar affiliates, from what I understand, right? I want to just highlight something that I think is a part of the bigger picture, right? Where's that article at? This is where we're really jumping into the conversation that I think really matters the most. Here we go. All right. $6.2 billion deal looms over Jimmy Kimmel's suspension. Jimmy Kimmel's show was suspended by ABC following criticism by the FCC chair, Brandon Carr. The two biggest local TV operators also came out swinging against Kimmel before his show was pulled. The companies are both pursuing or considering M&A deals that would require FCC approval. Jimmy Kimmel is off air, and the show's abrupt suspension has put the spotlight on the fraught politics of the broadcast TV business and the billions of dollars at stake. All right, there's a piece I want to go on here. I'm just going to the part that I want. Blah, blah, blah. This is what we already talked about. Yeah, just pulling the show. Okay, two things. NexStar and Sinclair operates ABC affiliate stations in many markets, including areas that lean conservative like Lubbock, Texas, and Chattanooga, Tennessee, where audiences may have reacted negatively to Kimmel's comments. The companies also have business reasons to keep Carr and the FCC happy. In August, NexStar announced it wanted to buy Tenga, another local TV operator, for $6.2 billion in a deal that would require FCC approval. That same month, Sinclair said it was reviewing its business and considering acquisitions, strategic partnerships, and business combinations, which would also be subject to FCC review. NexStar's deal with Tenga isn't straightforward. By buying Tenga, it would likely increase its local TV ownership to more than 39% of U.S. households, which is prohibited by law. There are some nuances in how the FCC calculates ownership share, including the type of spectrum that local TV stations use to air its shows. But ultimately, for the deal to proceed, the companies would likely need an FCC waiver or an increase in national ownership cap, which would require a rule change, said Rob Frieden, a telecommunications and law professor at Penn State University. The FCC recently issued a notice of inquiry, and they have solicited comments to refresh the record because they are certainly looking for ways to accommodate these mega mergers. Now, what is important is we are in the era of what you call all the monopolies. The main reason why we saw what happened to Kimmel, in addition to the fact that they already kind of want to censor what we're talking about to begin with, is, again, this giant merger technically is not legal. So it would require, again, the FCC to make an adjustment or make an accommodation or make an exception to the rule. And like we said, maybe about 45 minutes ago on the live, this is the era where we're throwing, not we, but they're throwing everything out there, because this is the time for people to get exactly what they want while they have a chance. Because, again, let's just say the FCC says, no, can't do it. They can take it to the Supreme Court. And we already know how the Supreme Court is moving, right? And so as we're seeing the monopolies extend in our media, like, understand, like, all of even our major media networks are all owned by like the same 6 corporations. Like, all of our entertainment in general, as far as mainstream media, is owned by like the same 6 corporations. And so they play a role. So what becomes scary is, as access to independent media becomes more and more scarce, be concerned and be wary of the things that are happening with how our information or what our entertainment is when it's presented to us. Look at what's happening with TikTok, right? You just saw that, I forgot what company, that's going to be the company that's going to oversee the algorithm for TikTok. You know what that means. TikTok is about to be a right-wing cesspool of anti-black, white people are inferior propaganda type stuff, right? And so you're starting to see that kind of thing happening. And so when we're talking about that FCC chair, all of these corporations want to make him happy because they need him to make an exception to the rule. So if he says he doesn't like what Jimmy Kimmel said, pull him off the air. Now you're watching Sinclair Media and NexStar say, oh, well, we're not going to show it because what Jimmy said was so offensive, we can't air it. And so let's cancel the show. Now here comes Disney, because Disney's like, well, damn, if you're not airing on 39% of whatever, we're not going to make our advertising dollars. I guess we have to cancel the show. The backlash that kicked in was they didn't realize all these people were going to be pissed off. All these people were going to start boycotting or canceling their Hulu subscriptions or canceling their, Disney Plus subscriptions. By the way, PBS has a whole program where you can pay, I forgot what it is, but you can get a whole bunch of different services. So lock into PBS. Anyway, we're going to see a whole lot more of this in reality, right? I think Jimmy Kimmel will be back on the air, but from what I'm understanding, like we said, NexStar and Sinclair is still not airing it. That's going to still be a problem for ABC and Disney and Jimmy Kimmel. So we're going to see where this fight goes. But we're now witnessing the death of free speech in this country, where we're watching media company, because think of the black woman who got fired from Washington Post by just posting a quote of the guy that's no longer here, posting the words that somebody else said, and she has to be accountable for his words, not because of what was said, but because it offends other people to call out racism as opposed to the racism being offensive, right? That black woman that got fired from the Washington Post. Like, this is where we're at, right? So you're seeing people in media and journalism and the news get whacked, but it goes back to what I said in the last slide. And this is not towards that black woman at Washington Post, but this is just towards our media in general. Our media played a bunch of games. They played and they kept giving inches to this nonsense. They played and kept saying, stuff isn't that bad. Let's keep platforming these really terrible people, because even though what they're saying is atrocious, it's giving us the highest ratings we've had in years. And we need the ratings because that increases our advertising dollars. And when the advertising dollars go up, we can get bonuses. We're not really going to pay our employees anything anymore, or anything extra, but our executive teams, they're going to get more money. And then we can acquire and have more acquisitions and buy more media companies and keep buying everything and buying everything. Please understand that when we're talking about our media corporations, if we go back to the 1980s, there were 39 corporations that owned our media. Like I said, we're down to 6. That's where we're at. Okay, I want to shift to this David person who I had never heard of until I started seeing this case, right? Which is wild to me. Let me pull up this next article here. There's a lot going on. I'm not going to read the whole article. I'm just going to read the bullet points that I want to highlight here. It's a wild time. I said, Lord, that's why y'all got to keep y'all peace. That's why I say observe, but don't overindulge, because folks are going to honestly start losing if they really sit and saturate with everything that's happening, and it starts sinking in that the world that you once knew does not exist anymore. Okay, so this person who's David, right? What we know so far. Now, David is an entertainer, a rapper, something, right? I never heard of him until last week. What we know so far is a decomposing body was found inside of a Tesla belonging to musician David at an impound lot in Hollywood on September 8th. The car was brought to the impound lot after someone reported it abandoned in the Hollywood Hills. I should tell you everything right there. And police were called after workers reported a strong odor coming from the Tesla. That's right, too. That tells you what you need to know. The Tesla was never reported stolen. The body was discovered inside a bag in the Tesla's front trunk. The remains were not intact and had badly decomposed. Also, the body, not to sound graphic, was, cut into pieces. The remains were so decomposed that it took authorities more than a week to identify the body. The remains were eventually identified as 15-year-old Celeste Rivas. David has a matching tattoo with Rivas, and her mother said she had been missing for over a year and that her daughter's boyfriend was named David. David initially decided to continue his world tour while cooperating with the investigation, but he canceled the remainder of his show or his tour on Wednesday. An unreleased song written by David references someone by the name of Celeste in the unfinished title and twice in the lyrics. Police raided the home connected to David as they continued the investigation. I think that's all I wanted. Okay. I'm going to tell you what the other issue I have is. Now, listen, we'll see what happens. Everything is pointing to this man. They even had matching tattoos on their finger. He had one, she had one. My thing is, David is a full-grown adult. This girl was probably 13 or 14 when she met him. If she went missing a year ago, her birthday was just like a week ago, which means she just turned 15. She was 13 at least when she was with this man, right? And so now I'm questioning everybody who was around David, because it's not like he wasn't, from what I've seen, it's not like he was an isolationist and lived by himself in some villa away from everybody with the girl. There are friends around. There's an entourage around. There's managers around. There's producers. If he just launched a tour, he's been in meeting after meeting after meeting with Live Nation, meeting with the promoters, meeting with the sponsors, meeting with all this, the brand. There are so many people who have been around and saw that little girl with him, right? And this is why I like somebody like Tyga, I've never effed with, because what pissed me off, remember Tyga, and when he was in a whole relationship with Kylie Jenner before she was an adult, and then he came out with that song talking about she's a big girl. And everybody just was cool with it and still partied to his songs. And I'm like, why is this man not in jail? And why are the rest of the Kardashians and the Jenners and everybody, especially Caitlyn Jenner, who is just so about family values? How are y'all letting this happen to that family there? That's why I don't do the Kardashians at all. Nope. But anyway, getting to my point, there are a bunch of enablers in this situation where there were people around. They knew that this girl was not supposed to be around this guy. They knew that this girl doesn't, clearly he's, whatever they had going, he is not a family member to that girl. He is not her guardian. There should have been questions asked, right? And it makes me question too, like, how does that work? To the point where she even got the tattoo. Who did the tattoo? She clearly didn't go to like an accredited tattoo parlor, because they would have given her a tattoo because she would have had to show ID, right? Also, if she's 13 or 14, she's not going to look like an adult. This goes back to when people keep saying, oh, you know, the way these girls are, they so fast, you can't even tell if they're a kid or not. You can tell. As somebody who worked in youth development for a decade, you always can tell. Always. There's a look. Yes, there are people that are teenagers that develop and start getting the bodies of adults. But this right here will tell you everything you need to know. And the minute you have a conversation with somebody, their age comes out in conversation, right? And so as a grown adult, you have nothing in common with a 12 or a 13-year-old. No reason. And so the idea of parading this girl around, because I've seen clips where they're on different lives and she's in the background and stuff. I'm like, nobody was. And now I'm looking at his fan base. Because clearly, you know, in this era of what you call stans that follow these celebrities every move, like when I tell you stans play no games, when they love a celebrity, they know everything about the celebrity. They know when a celebrity is going to the bathroom. They know when they're going to a restaurant. They know everything. They know the entourage. It's kind of like when I used to really, 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 really be into Janet Jackson as a teenager. I knew that woman's every choreographer, every dancer, every band member. I knew what kind of stage was, like everything. You couldn't tell me nothing about Janet Jackson when I was a teenager. Not a single thing. I knew everything. And that's before social media. That's before everything. Like this was just from like being on the music forums and locking in, and that's fan bases know all this stuff. So there are some fans that just turned a blind eye, act like they couldn't see nothing because they love the music so much. And we've seen this story many, many times with other grown adults who are sexually assaulting these teenagers or children or whatever else is going on. And then they get a pass because they're a celebrity, or because they made a good remix, or because they got a song that you like. And then nobody's ever called into question, because just think about it. Had something been called into question a year ago, that girl would be at home with her mama right now. Right? I don't know what's in the water. But I think what's even crazier is the fact that this man's music is surging in streaming. Because in addition, people are now curious. So you have people who are like, oh, I never heard him. Let me go check out his music. Yeah, give him some extra money. That makes a lot of sense. Unless, what are you paying for the lawyer fees? Right? So again, surging. He just found this. I think his stuff surged like 168% on the streaming platforms. I'm like, what is in? There's a reason why sometimes I just kind of check out from the world and just, lock into my own little bubble and drink my tea and sit in the backyard and look at the trees, right? Just watch the birds fly, just for a minute. You just need a break from everything. Like, all right, let me just sit here and watch the bird. I will sit out there and watch the Cardinals and the Blue Jays and the Robins just go at it. Be out there at peace. And I'll watch the carpet. There's this big old carpenter bee that always burrows in the house, right? Big old carpenter bee that just flies around. And I know that the carpenter bee is not going to sting me. They're just making sure I'm not trying to touch one egg, right? I just be out there at peace, because I know when I go back in the house and get to that phone or on the internet, or when I go into the city, it's a chaotic world we're living in. All right. I'm going to cover one last topic, and then we kind of have a little open floor for a little bit before I call it a night and go to bed. So I have seen this story. Now, some lives ago, I was talking about my issues and concerns that I have about AI, especially in music, right? And so I've seen that there's another act that has, and a lot of artists are talking about it, they're not happy at all, right? There's a new artist that has been signed to a $3 million deal. I'm not about to give them a lot of publicity, but I do want to just let you see the image of who this is, right? And so this is the artist. Again, let me align some things, right? This is not a real person. This is not music that is technically being made in a studio with an actual artist that is singing. Can I talk about how this ends up becoming a reality and how this ends up becoming a thing? With all of these AI acts that are coming out, what's happening is, and I'll say this as an artist, that's why I'm annoyed. As an artist, let me bask in it, because sometimes I don't pat myself on the back enough. As we all put out music on the platforms and into the internet space and into the digital space, whether it's Apple Music or Tidal or Spotify or iTunes or wherever, every time an artist releases music, it feeds into that AI technology to the point where all of this stuff, like because I went and listened to a few songs just to see what was going on, and you can tell it's a conglomerate and like a combination of a bunch of different artists put together to kind of make a makeshift act, right? So the songs are very soulless, right? They sound very mechanical, you can tell something is missing from them, but they're still going to make a lot of money. And so, like I was saying, every time actual artists release music, it still feeds the AI. And it just gives the AI a better opportunity at making better music for the AI artists. So as artists are kind of trapped in a space where either artists just stop making music, which would still be a problem because AI is going to do what they do, or artists make music, but then it feeds into that AI stuff. So think back to, remember when I was lashing Timbaland a few lives ago, and Timbaland had this whole competition where he was telling producers and songwriters, send me your track, send me your stuff, and I'm gonna score it. I'm gonna talk because I can get you in the business, blah, 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 blah. And all of these different independent artists that, have their own home studios or self-produce or on small labels, they're sending all of their music, sending all this stuff, right? Out of nowhere, Timbaland's producer, the Next Great Star program, magically disappears and is never brought up again. And what's the next thing you hear him talking about? Some AI artist that he's created. And what's interesting about Timbaland's AI artist, his wasn't even like a black artist. It was like some kind of ambiguous Asian type of artist thing. And then he went on this whole spiel about how, AI music is so much more soulful than what the actual artists are doing. And that's why I need to get behind it and so on and so forth. This is the next wave. This is the next move. And so going back to what I'm saying, a lot of people really think that a lot of the music that was submitted to the program that he was marketing ended up feeding the AI for the artist that he decided to create. That's what a lot of people think are happening. And it's that same pattern that's happening with a lot of these AI acts that are coming out. And I also find it interesting that they decided to latch onto an R&B sound and make an R&B artist. Seeing that R&B music is already dealing with what it's dealing with in the music industry as far as getting a backseat where every other genre, and I used to always say this in my R&B is Dead series, every other genre borrows from gospel. Takes that too, but borrows from R&B. Gospel is the parent, and then here comes R&B and blues. But so every genre takes from R&B, right? Pop borrows from all of the pop girls. Well, finally they're kind of getting back into their pop bucket, but for years, all of these pop R&B artists were so R&B coded. Look at Justin Bieber's whole sound. Justin Bieber was so mad he was fighting to get an R&B nomination at the Grammys, right? Ariana Grande some years back. Straight up R&B sound. She got browner and browner with each album. Now she's kind of going back the other way, right? All of these, and it happens generationally. We saw Britney and Christina kind of did it, and NSYNC and Backstreet Boys. Every generation does it. As much as I enjoy Madonna, she went through that phase at one point in time. Bedtime Stories album, like they do, or even when she first came out with all the Nile Rodgers productions, right? They all do it. Everybody borrows from R&B. Right? But R&B never gets the same kind of support by these labels, never gets the same kind of push by radio. And a lot of R&B acts still have to take a backseat to everybody else who's already infiltrated and stolen their sound and then tells them they're not good enough to do their own sound and tells them they have to evolve. So then when they do evolve, they're told what you're doing doesn't fit the trend of what it is that's current right now. So we can't play this. That's not going to work. And so we've seen many, many new R&B acts that have come out in the last few years that are acclaimed, but they kind of stay in an acclaimed internet bubble universe where only the diehards who live on the internet or are really big music fans that really follow and pay attention to everything know who they are. And the general public has no idea who any of these people are. So we've had so many great artists come out in the last few years who are still very under the radar, but have amazing projects, right? And so getting back to this AI, I just found it funny. It's like an AI artist, a person that's not even a real person can ink a $3 million deal. And the crazy thing is, remember, this AI artist will never have to pay that money back to the label because they're not a real person. It's a cash crop for whatever agency or company built that artist. And most likely that company already has that $3 million to give back. Because again, when you get that $3 million deal or whatever deal, that's just advance money. You got to pay that back to the label. That's the money you're going to use to create your album, market your album, blah, 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 blah. You spend the $3 million or the label spends the $3 million, great. But you don't make a dime until that $3 million is paid back to the label through album sales. And now in the 360 deal market, through your tour and your merch and everything else like that. So that's the reality. And so it is, to me, this is, again, it's a money grab. It's where greed is going. And this is the other problem when you have corporations that are running entertainment. And so even with film and television, you got to think about like something like a Netflix. Netflix is as entertaining as it is. Netflix is a corporation. It's a business. They're not in it specifically for the art form of film. They're in it for, let's see what we can get the most ratings with, right? Which is why we're seeing so many shows in the streaming universe. They have acclaim, they have viewers, and then they get canceled after a season or two because they have to kind of just keep the output train going, because streaming services can't operate like cable services, where with cable, they report their numbers and everything to Nielsen, and they have a different kind of advertising revenue with cable and major network shows, there's residuals, there's syndication, there's all of that. With streaming, there's none of that. The goal with streaming, as far as everything is, you just get new subscriptions. So you come out with new content that gets people excited to subscribe to that streaming platform. But the problem is, you spending $10 million an episode for this whatever show that's out and everybody's watching it. And so, boom, you get those subscribers. Those subscribers still have access to everything else on the platform. There's no new money coming in. And in order to keep those subscriptions up, you have to keep coming out with new content to keep more people interested in staying on that platform and new people buying into that platform, which means there's not enough money to keep producing all these shows. So we have to cut and kill some of our darlings, even the shows that everybody loves. And so it's a cycle that continues and continues. And that's because, again, it's a business model as opposed to emphasis on entertainment and what the people want. And we've seen the same thing happen with the music industry, where we have so many people in charge of the music industry that don't, and I get it. You got to have that business aspect and mindset for this to work. But the problem is a lot of these people aren't even fans of music. Their ear is not to the street. They're not tied to anything. It's all about what's in the paycheck. And I think that's why everything's just been so chaotic. So we'll see what goes with that. I'm sure there's going to be a whole lot more AI acts that continue to come out. What was the K-pop Demon Slayer thing on Netflix that was really popular? And there was the AI K-pop group that just became the first girl group to have a #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 since Destiny's Child Bootylicious in 2001. It's a time, y'all. Anyway, that's all my main topics. We'll chop it up in the live for a little bit, and then I will call it a night. Like I said, I already just uploaded another video, so if this was a little bit shorter than the usual lives, I do have a video that I did on Melodies from Heaven with Kirk Franklin and the realities of what was happening in 1996. Please go and check that video out as well, because I'm convinced that video is probably going to get lost in the algorithm because this live will overpower it. So go and watch that, please. Let's see here. Avocado Queen said, do you really believe the government was ever a democracy? America is an oligarchy, a corporation serving 1% Dems and Repubs. No, not in the realm that what we were taught. I feel like we were all taught that every man has a vote and your vote can change the world. I think we at one point were more of a democratic republic, where you have like democratic representation, where you elect somebody to kind of represent what your issues are. But like you said, that whole conversation of corporations and stuff kind of moving into everything and this becoming a business, I think as we came into the 20th century, that's what the United States became. And that's what we've been living under, right? And now that there's just an unmeasurable amount of money floating around in the world, America is being, sold off to the highest bidder. And that's where we're at, right? So, yeah. It's what it is. But it's not even just the United States. We're seeing that in a lot of what you call Western nations anyway. All right. Ayana J said all his fans knew and are attempting to delete evidence of whatever sites they were on. Discord, I think. See, it's now you and I don't think people will ever understand until they have a child that's missing. God forbid that's your experience, right? People will never understand what that's like to not only have a child that's missing, but then they're no longer alive. And the worst feeling in the world, in addition to that, is knowing that they died in some kind of pain or died afraid or died helpless. It's like a triple dagger. People will never understand that. So the stupidity of latching onto your fandom of an artist that, we got to kind of protect their image. It is what it is. I'm not trying to convict this man, but I'm just saying at this point in time, all the stars are aligning. And even if he is not guilty or even tied or associated with killing this girl, he still was in an inappropriate relationship. It's not even a relationship. To me, it's statutory rape with an underage girl, right? There's no way around that. There's no other way you can tell that story. You can do all the mental gymnastics you want. Girl's missing a whole year. People have seen her in a mess. All right. Somebody said, David, who now? Look, I didn't know who he was until last week. I was digging deep in the trenches of the internet. Like, who is this? Right? Because I was like, I don't remember nobody. At first, I didn't even know how to say his name. I was like, D4VD? D4VD. I was like, D4VD? D4VD? Like, I ain't never heard of that person. All right. Alan said the AI artist going to #1 on iTunes R&B is very disturbing. And then what pissed me off even more, then that AI artist released a video thanking everybody for that. I'm like, are y'all for real? They don't even have that AI artist. Like, look, just going back to the picture, just look at how it doesn't even, it looks, you can tell that this is not real. It looks so cartoonish, and this is really how look at the hands. right? It's so cartoonish. And what I think what's pissing me off is even this whole aesthetic. This is so intentional with what they're doing. They know that they think there's a certain demographic that will latch onto this. And again, I want to highlight that this is different than, because we've seen moments where you have animated artists that are released, where there are producers, they make music, and they make music for an artist that is like a 3D character or something, but it's not AI. It's not going and stealing all the concepts and sounds from other artists to create one. It's somebody really went in there and blah, 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 and they push out some kind of animated character artist. And so even though I'm not really a fan of that either, it is different than using AI. Like I said, for anybody that's an artist, every time you or I release a song, it goes into whatever space to be utilized, right? How do you think just think about like last year when AI really started jumping in music, like think about like even like the BBL Drizzy song and all those AI kind of sounding songs. How do you think people are able to get those prompts done so quickly, right? All of the music that we listen to for the last 40, 50 years had been kind of programmed into that whole system. And people can literally say, hey, make me a song that sounds like blah, 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 with this, with that. And then boom, you got a song, right? Yeah, whatever. As somebody who plays every instrument on their albums, this is annoying and sings every note. I'm like, okay, whatever. Yeah. And the thing is, AI is here. There's nothing you can do about it, right? It's not going anywhere. I mean, well, there's nothing you can do about it, but it's not legal, so I won't tell you what to do. And it wouldn't just be one location. There's tons of them. So, and it's still, and then again, with AI and what it's doing to the environment, we talked about what's happening in Memphis. There's just too much going on, right? All right. Somebody said people still want to see live performances. Now, this is where I do think the AI thing will fail because it's not a real person. I think at some point there will be limitations on how far and what it is that they can do. Now, most likely what they would try to do is they'll do the hologram stuff. So like remember I was whacking Whitney Houston's estate because I thought it was a stupid idea to do the Whitney Houston hologram tour, because I'm like, y'all disrespected the lady while she was here. Now you want to make some more money off of her. And then you create these holograms where, let me pull, I gotta prove my point, because I was like, y'all are playing in this lady's face. They had mixed like 20 different Whitney eras together to make these Whitney characters. Whitney hologram tour. I'm gonna tell you what my beef is. Okay, yeah, this is what I want. Okay, so as they did this Whitney hologram tour, first of all, look at this. This is what the hologram looked like. This tour, this was right before COVID kicked off, right? February 19th, 2020. This went to all kind of theaters and arenas. People paid top dollar to see this. And what ended up happening is you have a band playing with the vocals of Whitney Houston, and then you have the hologram. This is like the 1986 Whitney jeans with the 1997 step-by-step wig with the 2000 greatest hits album cover makeup. I was like, y'all are out here playing. You're out here playing in Whitney's face, and it's pissing me off. Like, I just thought it was such a money grab. Rolling Stone always wants you to pay for something. I'm not paying for nothing. Let's see, do you have any more pictures on here? Oh, they took everything down. Anyway, to me, it was such a money grab, right? It's just, I think a lot of times when they do stuff with our artists, they don't even do it from a place of love. Remember when they were going to do the hologram on The Voice with Whitney Houston, and it was going to be Christina Aguilera and Whitney Houston singing together? And then when you saw the hologram, it didn't even look like Whitney Houston. It was literally just a woman with a French roll wig and a white dress dancing, and that was Whitney Houston. I said, they ended up canceling that performance, but they play. They continue to play. I don't like it. I don't like it. I don't like it. That's just me. Maybe I sound like an old grumpy man, but I don't know. And then what pissed me off is as the tour was going in the review, some of the people were like, this was better than the real concert. Okay, whatever. Thank you, Eugene Gomes. All right, I'm going to wind down. I'm going to read a few more comments and we're going to call it a night. Somebody said, we need to preserve these R&B artists for real that have talent, the soul, and the grit. This is why I always say, please support a lot of the channels that are especially doing a great job of trying to protect the legacy of a lot of these artists. Like I said, there are some artists I think there's other people on YouTube that do a great job. Like, y'all know, I rock with Justified by Jerry. I definitely rock with his channel because I think he does a great job of, again, telling the story of a lot of our artists, but still protecting their brand and their legacy as he reports on their stories, right? He's also way more consistent than I am because, y'all get a So What Happened about once a year, right? I'll blink and Homeboy will have like 6 episodes. I'm like, damn, look, I'm at me and him will have to be friends in real life because we're gonna have to start checking with each other. Like, hey, I'm doing my next. So what happened on this artist? Are you doing that person? Let me know, right? But I think he does a great job of kind of telling their different stories. There's a few people that I think Black Femininity TV does a nice job of like telling our stories and stuff, especially with our art and stuff. Like really lock into some of these channels that are actually doing the work and not just trying to latch onto like rage bait or things that just rack in views, but really like try to tell and protect our narratives and our stories, right? Because we don't have a lot of media that's doing it right now. And I think you're starting to see it roll out as we've had an entire generation that didn't get the luxury of behind the music before they were rock stars. True Hollywood Story, pop-up video, ultrasound, biorhythm, intimate portrait. Like there's a whole generation that didn't get any of that. And so a lot of their understanding of what happened in music in the past or culturally, some of them are getting it from online, but a lot of them aren't. Who's to say that they have to, right? But it's not something that was really presented for them to care about. And so we're starting to see a space where we're going to have a lot of people, unfortunately, be forgotten from the culture if we don't protect it. So that's why I'm always trying to always overteach or, again, other people do the same thing. And especially a lot of these like music essay videos, like I think a lot of the people that do them do an excellent job of, again, telling the story, protecting the legacies, and introducing these artists to new audiences and giving a better in-depth perspective about what was happening. Like the whole reason I even did the So What Happened series was because I think I was on Twitter and I saw, it was a tweet or something. It was about TLC and it was about the 3D album. They were like, oh, well, the album didn't sell because it sucked. I was like, wait, that doesn't, and so it just, and again, music is subjective, so people will have their viewpoints. But I was like, we have to look at the circumstances of everything that would have been taking place as that album was released, right? In addition to the member dying, we got to talk about the fact that they had to rush the album. We got to talk about the fact that because it was still, the album was released a few months after Left Eye died, there weren't going to be any performances because it was too emotional for T-Bow. Like there was all these things to consider. And so that's how So What Happened became a thing. I was like, let's really tell the story. And so that's why I was saying like Justified by Jerry, I think does a good job of doing that same thing too. So yeah. There's that. Let's see. Oh, what up, cousin? I see my cousin on here. What up, Brandon? Wait. Let me see what trash you want here talking about. Oh, he said, did you talk about Laura Loomer and Jazz? Yeah, Brandon, I did. You got to go back. I don't know where the timestamp is, but I did. They tried it. Also, I'm gonna shout out my cousin Brandy. Listen, my cousin Brandon's oldest daughter Brandy is killing the softball game. Do I have the link? She has broken like the school record. Mind you, she's in 9th grade on the varsity softball team. Broken the school record for no hitters. And a few other things. I'm probably saying what her record is. I'm probably saying it wrong, whatever it is. That girl just, because it's too many things. Every time I turn around, she's breaking a record. Like Brandy is killing the game. So shout out to you, Brandy. Yeah, love to see it. Like she is getting all kind of like attention across the entire state of Georgia just because it's like she is something serious. I love that for her. So yeah, shout out to you. Let's see. Somebody said, are the bots entering the chat? I don't know. We don't really have too much of a problem with bots on this channel. We don't even have a problem. I don't even get a lot of pushback on this channel. Sometimes I'm like, I think at some point, my thing is, I feel like when you're consistent with where you stand on things, people know what it is that they're going to get. And so even when we talk, because, we talk some serious Black people stuff on here, and I really don't have a lot of filter when I say what I need to say. I'm not getting bombarded by swarms of angry white folks. They don't even come on here. I feel like they see my face in the thumbnail and already know what I'm going to be talking about. So they're like, let's not even go to him. Right. So I kind of feel like that's where we're at. Brandon. Oh, excuse me. Sorry, Brandon. 10th grade. Sorry. She growing too fast. 10th grade. Right. But yeah, she's been killing it. So yeah, let's see. Where are we at here? Calvin, will you answer my question, please? What is the question you're asking, my friend? Somebody said, I used to binge artist interviews on YouTube. I always end up going down rabbit holes for different artists. A lot of times when I become a fan of an artist, it's because I don't know. I somehow saw a random clip pop up on my For You page, and then I watch a clip or something, and then I really, really like it. And then I start digging through everything. Then I dig through their show, and then, like you said, dig through their interviews. And before you know, I'm like, oh, I really like this person be killing it. And so, yeah, I've definitely become a fan of a lot of folks from way back when, just digging through their stuff. Let's see. Mariah Carey is releasing her album on Friday. I will be purchasing. There's a handful of people whose albums I will still actually go and buy just because they gave me a wonderful childhood. Okay, this is Brandon is talking to me in real time. So Brandy's stat right now, she is 7 strikeouts from 200 in one season. It's in one season. I think this is in one season. 7 strikeouts from 200. As far as like she's already broken the school record. Like she's not playing no games. She's been recognized by I want to say the mayor of the city. She's killing the game. I love that for her. DEI that. How do I like the Janet samples on the Cardi B album? They cool. First of all, Janet got me to go and listen to a Cardi B album because as soon as I saw the Janet, I was like, oh, she's finally making some music. Let me go see what she's doing. But then I was like, I bet you she's not even on it. I thought it was gonna be an interlude at first, right? And then I listened. It's actually not a bad song, but it's a sample. Janet's not even on it. I was like, Janet, whatever. And then there's another song that samples Funny How Time Flies. I think the samples are used nicely. And I will say that I like that it's not a lazy sample, especially for the Principal song. Because y'all know I don't like a lazy sample. I do not like when somebody just takes a song, literally an instrumental, and just re-sings over it. That's why I hate that DJ Khaled and SZA song. I don't remember what it's called, but it has a sample of Outkast, Sorry Miss Jackson, and I think it's the laziest production in the world. It pisses me off so bad every time I hear it. It's like they didn't even like play with the sound, just not even a little nothing. Just here's the track, sing over it. We the best. No, you're not. No, man. Okay, let's see. Oh yeah, I like Terrell's show as well. I mean, like there's a guy Terrell who interviews singers and he plays a game in which they have to sing a song after receiving a word prompt. Found music that way too. Yeah, he is a fun show. I like that, and I like that he has a lot of people on his show that we often don't get to see in the mainstream. Right? He can bring people who we haven't seen in years. Right? And I like that it's kind of like conversational. It's not as formal. They can actually have fun on the show. Right? I try to the stuff that I like to watch on YouTube outside of everything. I try to indulge in things that make you feel good because the world is already crazy. We can't spend so much time locked into just crazy. That cannot be what we wake up and go to sleep with all night, all day. Now I have to kind of do it to an extent sometimes because I have this channel and some of you watch specifically because you're like, I don't watch the news. We're waiting for you to tell us what happened. But listen, like I said, observe but don't overindulge. So I especially in this moment, like I said before, nobody is taking my joy. With the world falling apart in the way that it is, I'm working twice as hard to really, complete a lot of the projects that I'm excited about doing behind the scenes. Like, there's a lot of really cool things that I'm working on, and so that's what has my focus. So, as the world falls apart around me, I'm gonna get it done, right? Even if we ain't around to enjoy it. Let's see. Somebody said I refuse to hear Khaled's music. I mean, it was a nice album for what it is. There's not a lot of rappers I listen to in general, minus the old heads that I like. Of the new rappers, the only new rappers I really pay attention to were like, and he's not even new, it's Tyler the Creator and maybe Topaz Jones, John Gibbs. Those are like the main. Duckworth I don't consider a rapper. He kind of just does a little bit of everything. Like those are like the main ones. Other than that, I don't really listen to a lot of rappers because I want to sing along. I like a melody, so rap don't really be doing it for me like they used to. But I see Cardi kind of is like her brand as far as entertainment is she has a very likable personality, and I think that's the appeal that works with her. And I think she's made it work to her advantage, right? She's not really a big, in the hip hop community, people are on one side of the argument or the other when it comes to her. But I think she's been able to do what she does in the way that she does it, right? And so if that works for her fans, go for it. Kendrick Lamar, I do listen to. I like Kendrick. I used to be into J. Cole. I kind of lost and fell off the wagon around like 2021. But J. Cole's Born Sinner album is one of my favorite albums. Who else? I put like J. Cole and Kendrick and Tyler all in the same boat because they all kind of came out around the same time. Yeah, J. Cole actually, I remember J. Cole did Howard Homecoming. 2010, 2011, he performed at the Step Show. It was when he was still like really coming. This when he still had short hair. He was still kind of coming out at the time. That's when he had the song that had the Paul Abdul straight up reference. That was way, way back, right? So there's that. Anyway, what else we got before I call it a night, y'all? This has been dope. I appreciate y'all for hanging. I was actually very, very tired today. Like I literally had to take a nap before I got on here because I was like, I was about to cancel this live. Like I don't think I can do it because I'm tired. But we made it through. Right. Some other things I want you guys to take note and pay attention to. I'm going to talk about it in a later video, but pay attention to what's happening with this whole turning point thing and how they're deciding to really start locking in with the schools. In the same way we talked about the issues with PragerU, now you have Turning Point USA that has locked in and decided to be in every classroom in the state of Oklahoma. And I'm sure that that is going to also spread further down the line. So please, ladies and gentlemen, like I said, this is the time where as parents, as educators, as community builders, we got to bring our kids in and like, because we cannot just trust anybody to educate them. And we got to really just again, the themes again for the last two lives and this one again, being in community, having discernment. That is the only way we're getting through this nonsense. If you are somebody who just moves as an individual, as me, myself, and I, and for everybody, unfortunately, at this moment, you're in the way. You're going to have to step outside of yourself for a quick second and understand that we can get further along moving together than moving as individuals. And if you choose to be an individual, then don't stand in our way. Don't jump in the way of progress. Even with the whole Jimmy Kimmel thing, when I saw Ebro, the guy from Hot 97, trying to brush everything off like, oh, it's not a bad deal, or you guys are actually watching the show. I'm like, that's not the point. The point is you're watching, free speech kind of get chipped away minute by minute. And you as somebody who's on radio, same thing can easily happen to you. You acting like Hot 97 ain't owned by 15 other corporations. Like, and hey, I'll leave it alone. Yeah, you really ain't supposed to be in the space you in anyway. But there's that. All right. Have you heard about Zach Fox from Abbott? Yes, Abbott Elementary. He's a hyphenate DJ rapper comedian. Yeah, I just watched a really cool interview he did. Maybe last week. I'm not gonna say I don't listen to rap at all. I just have my favorites. When I have my go-to stuff, I put on something I can sing along to. I want to sing in the car. I want to just enjoy a melody. I do like rap. I just don't care for a lot of the newer stuff. It's just, again, as I'm getting older, I'm getting phased out of the target demo for who a lot of these acts are marketed to. And a lot of them, some of these new ones just don't do it for me. So that's where I'm at, right? Okay. Let's see here. Well, what do I think about? Oh, I saw this. What do I think about Ados and Yvette Carnell and FBA and Tariq Nasheed? I'm not a part of any groups. It's me, myself, and I over here. Now, what I do is I do keep an eye on what is happening within our experience with whatever movements are there, what the narratives are, what are people getting behind. I just always keep an eye to kind of see how everybody's moving. I'm not personally attached to any groups. I'll say with Ados, if I had to like latch on to one or the other, what I've seen on the Ados side is that there is at least policy that they are behind, and there's that. I'm not really tied in and locked in with none of them like that, so I can't really give a full opinion. Like I said, y'all gotta have discernment with what it is that you follow and what it is that you get behind. But I'm not a part of anything. It's me, myself, and I over here. As far as Tariq, I've never bought into Tariq. I'm sorry. That man, sorry. Scammer. He told y'all was getting that museum, and what did it turn into? A nightclub with hookah. So Tariq, to me, I kind of almost put in the Umar Johnson box. And I think it's unfortunate because I think there's a lot of people who really want to be a part of something, who really want to be a part of something that moves the needle and builds. And I think when you don't have the right people leading some of these things, and this is just my opinion, y'all can get as mad as you want. Y'all can send the Tariq disciples to come fight me, whatever. I just don't see it for him. Sorry. I used to think years ago I really appreciated the Hidden Colors docs way back when. But I just think as time has progressed, I just see things a lot differently than some of these people. And I think sometimes there's a slippery slope when we start getting into the weeds of some chaos. And I think there are some people who have decided to do that. And so, yeah, there's a reason I'm not tied to anything. But I do think with the movements, I will say this. I feel like a conversation on reparations kind of found its way back to the forefront because of a lot of what you saw ADOS pushing around 2016, 2017, 2018. It did kind of bring the conversation back to the national stage, right? To the point where when we're talking the 2020 presidential election in that debate, I think for the very first time in decades, there was a question about reparations. But that's where I'm at. I'm not a part of no groups. I ain't with nobody. Mm-mm. Mm-mm. I just the stuff I'm seeing with a lot of these folks that I don't like, which is rubbing me the wrong way, which is why I'm very cautious of ever like really getting behind all that. But like I said, I keep my ear to the street. I see what everybody's doing. Sometimes they have some things I like, and sometimes they have a lot of things I'm like, what? No. But that's it. I don't like trying to like whack somebody else's how they're doing whatever they got. What they do works for them. What I got over here is for me. I'm not leading a movement. I'm just sharing what I think about the world. They're actually trying to lead movements with what they got going. That's where I'm at. All right. I just think in this moment, I just think we're up against so much. And I think we have to really start looking forward and looking off into the distance about what is it that we actually want. I think there's some of us that are so locked into just this moment that we can't see past anything else, and we can't envision that conversation of cause and effect. And unfortunately, people that aren't able to do that stay locked into moments of chaos, and then they start to sow divisiveness within the collective, and they start to like it gets really weird. So yeah, that's where I'm at. Let me see here. Somebody say everybody always got something negative to say about Cardi. I don't got to beef with her. I just don't really listen to her, but I think she's funny. She gives me a great laugh. And I will say, I do like that Bodega Batty song. I like that. But yeah, let me see. Somebody said, "Oh, okay. I don't want to start this division between these groups, but yes, but like I said, one group definitely has an entire platform and a website and the policy that they want to get behind. I'm not really sure where the other lands. So maybe those who are members, you can expound kind of. I just haven't really seen a clear distinction of what the end goal is. So yeah. Somebody said you don't do group thinking. That's good. Yeah, maybe that's what it is. I've never really been one. Even when I was in college, I had no desire to pledge, and it was nothing against the Divine Nine or anything because I just wasn't interested. Right? I've kind of always kind of done my own thing, and I like to kind of build, I guess, community with the things I was interested. The things I was interested in were like music and stuff. So I wasn't into Greek life, but that doesn't take away from what D9 does in community, right? I just God, what was it that the I think it's the Deltas. There's a huge initiative that they're behind. It's actually I think it has to do with combating voter disenfranchisement. I don't. Oh God, I can't remember what it is. Somebody can clarify what it is. But yeah, the groups are doing their work respectively in the realms that they do. So yeah, everybody has something that works for them. For me, I wasn't interested in being in a lot of groups. Right. So that's it. Let's see. That's about it, folks. Like I said, book club will pick up on October 6th. That is on a Monday, 9 p.m. Eastern. We are reading The Color of Money. That's the main thing. What else was going on? Yeah, y'all probably won't see me no more this week. Hey, look, I'm gonna take a break. I do need to get this comedically hard-headed episode out. I am so sorry for those that keep asking. Look, life just keeps lifing, but it's there. The challenge is it's still a funny episode, but it's a sad episode because something terrible happened. So it's trying to tell it in a way where I'm not what I don't want to happen again. Some of you really loved the episode I did on my dad, but some of you also left that episode snot crying. I don't want anybody snot crying leaving comedically hard-headed episodes, right? So it's coming now. Anyway, This has been dope. I appreciate you guys for hanging with me. Stay safe, stay sane, mind your business so that you can age well, Lord Loomer. And I will see you guys on the next one. All right, good night, folks.